I racked my brain and I racked my brain. I don't think I give a shit about guitarists like I thought I did.
Oh wow.
I don't think it matters to me like I thought it did. If you'd asked me last week, hey man, how important is a great punk rock guitarist? I'd have been like, man, that's like maybe like a 1A, a vocalist and lyricist, I guess. Nah, man, I don't think it matters because I think there's a handful of people that play guitar that I really love. And after that, it's just like people that were influenced by them. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast. Rob and I have an interesting conversation this week. We're going to flip it around a little bit, and I'm going to let Rob take the lead because we're talking about what are I was going to say what are our like favorite or our top 10 punk rock guitarists. But I think we're just going to talk about like what are the great guitarists in punk rock, because I'm telling you, man, the reason I'm going to ask Rob to kind of take the lead on this one is because when I was thinking of this topic before you mentioned it, so it was really strange to me that you brought it up, and I just thought, oh shit, if you're bringing it up and I'm thinking it, we need to jump on this. And then so as the week went on, I started thinking of it the next day. I racked my brain and I racked my brain. I don't think I give a shit about guitarists like I thought I did.
Oh wow.
I don't think it matters to me like I thought it did. If you'd asked me last week, hey man, how important is a great punk rock guitarist? I'd have been like, man, that's like maybe like a 1A, a vocalist and lyricist, I guess. Nah, man, I don't think it matters because I think there's a handful of people that play guitar that I really love. And after that, it's just like people that were influenced by them. And then like, who is capable enough to write a good album? Okay, I'm interested. So tonight we're going to talk about some of the greatest punk rock guitarists, with a little caveat being like this: whatever I bring up will be my favorite, not necessarily what I think is objectively the best. So that being said, let's just start the show, man. We usually don't do that. We usually have things to talk about beforehand. I don't really have much this week, man. I'm just really interested to hear what you have to say, because I don't have a lot to say about the topic, even though I will talk a lot. That's just how I roll.
I understand what you're saying in a way, because this list, we always say the list is hard, and sometimes when we mean that, it's there's too few to make a list, or there's like too many. This was hard in a kind of a different way, because it's actually hard for guitarists, specifically in punk rock, of all the instruments, to be distinct in the genre.
Exactly what I was talking about.
And so, like, even on mine, there's a few problems. One, it's hard to differentiate good punk from good guitar. Like, there's not a lot of punk bands where I'm like, I love that punk band, but God, that guitarist really sucks. And it's just one of those things, though. But that's not really necessarily, I think, even specific to punk, right? Rock music in general, guitar-driven music kind of needs, like, the guitar plays, like a role in it to some extent. With that said, of all the instruments, punk at its core is kind of antagonistic towards the guitar. Because think about that. Like, what did punk kind of eliminate? A lot of the guitar excess, the virtuosity. Now, I think a lot of that got brought back into punk in a pretty cool way, but like, that's part of the initial idea of punk, is taking some of that stuff away and cutting back on some of that stuff. And it's not that with the other instruments, because the other instruments in punk are excessive. Bass can be like excessive in punk. Drums is like, can be overpowering in punk, but like guitar, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. With that said, it is also the core of like the melody in punk, I would say, more so than a lot of other music. You think of even like metal and this other stuff that's a lot more driven by like that rhythm kind of thing. Whereas like when you think punk shares that more with pop, in that it's more about like tone and that kind of stuff to create music. And that's also the difficulty too, is what makes a punk guitarist is extremely subjective, because it means very, very different things. Because like rhythm guitar, super important to some punk bands. At the same time, like lead guitar, not that important to some, but then the thing that makes it like guitar, this would be difficult if we were talking about metal bands, but it's almost impossible talking about punk bands. And it's hard to figure out who's actually good with some of this stuff too. That's part of it too. So there's a lot to it.
I would say that lead guitar is like, it's important as a title more so than an activity, because with your lead guitarist, you're going to be the one that does bring the melodic parallels to the song. You're going to be the one that does the leads, the hooks, the little bit of shredding that is done. there are a handful that I want to talk about. Like there is a handful of guitars I want to talk about, but two of them, I don't even know if you'll consider them punk at all. Like not even, I don't. So, okay. But you said something that really, man, I don't know if you saw my hand started moving because I was trying to not forget this thought I had because I wanted to let you say your piece. But I want, when you said that, what did punk rock do to guitar? It took the technical aspect of it out, right? Had I just approached this conversation with that in mind, because I didn't for some reason, I bet I would have a list of 10 guitarists. I bet I would. But I didn't think about it like that. I was like, okay, who is like important, who is really good? I started Googling it and I was getting these answers that I was like, what? That guy sucks. But does that mean he's not important? Or does that mean he's not even my favorite? Because honestly, dude, this show is not an objective show very often. It is a subjective conversation most of the time. So interesting, man. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm going to write down a few right before so I don't forget them, but I would love to hear what you have to say about this now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's part of the technical aspect. Like I said, like think about it. Like you get a hint who's going to be pretty high on my list. One band that is always pretty high does not have guitar solos in their arsenal, but yet that guitar tone and everything is super important and like essential to the genre. Rhythm guitar.
I don't know what you're talking about right now, but I can't wait to hear.
Good, that's a teaser. Rhythm guitar is extremely important in punk. Because
very much.
Like think about a band like Rancid that we love so much. The color in that band.
Wait, we like Rancid?
No, not really. No.
Nope, we love them.
We love them, yes. But like the color in that band is a lot of times brought by the bass player. Even in that band where they're doing the ska strumming and all that, guitar is like not a percussive instrument in the way nu metal, like it's not a drum in the way nu metal, because like the rhythm section is also very important in punk. But sometimes the role of the guitar in punk is to hit you over the head, not necessarily to like soothe you. The way it's used, and basically in so many other genres where it adds so much like flavor and stuff like that. It's funny because I think like in bands, like in big time bands, like in like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and these bands like big time two guitarists, I always feel like the punk rock rhythm guitarist, it's always a punk rocker that's kind of the rhythm guitarist, like shouldn't get paid as much as the lead guitarist in that band. Like not actually, I'm not trying to mess with anyone's money, but if it was like a job,
but
like the lead guitarist does less work, but is more of a specialist in that band. Now, lead guitars are like more rare, I think, in punk rock, but the job of the rhythm guitarist might in some ways be argued to be more important and more vital to a punk rock band. And then like think about even like some of the lighter stuff, and like there's like think about guys like whether it's Skiba, whether it's like Tom DeLonge, those guys, we don't think of them as like these great lead guitar players, but they play a lot of leads in these trios with a lot of rhythm back because they have to sync in the way they got to do with the drums and the bass players and all that. So it just it creates a different thing. And at the same time, there's not the production value in punk. So sometimes guitars have to do even different things that are kind of even wonkier, which brings the other instruments in. I will say this though. Here's what's cool about punk guitar. I do think it's the instrument along with vocals, but it's the instrument in punk that gives the notion that anyone can do it. Because think about this, like every punk band has a really good drummer and a really good bass player and a unique singer, or sometimes just a bad singer. Or they should but everyone we talk about, the bass players are good, the drummers are great. Like those bass players and drummers in punk bands can play in any band. Whatever. Guitars is you can suck at guitar and be in a great punk rock band and be a great like punk rock guitar player, or at least get started in it. Not to be like that's not to disrespect the great guitar players in punk. I'm just saying it is a good
act. Disrespect them on purpose.
I am. It's a great act. Well, but that is the appeal of punk, is that kind of anyone can do it, and what that means is really on the guitar. It's the chords, the simplicity of it. So at the same time, guitar is very important to punk, that I think it's a good access point into it. It's like, think about it. You can play a punk song. You can play Brain Stew by Green Day. That's like, 5 chords. It's not that difficult to do. Pretty much on anyone's first day of guitar, you could teach them that song. Not a lot of genres.
Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Right. But I mean, Brain Stew's a little bit easier, and they'll think it's Crazy Train.
You think so?
Yeah, I would say
it's easier than Smells Like Teen Spirit. I guess it is kind of
because you got to do actually a little bit there's just
the rhythm of Smells Like
the rhythm of Teen Spirit.
So you have to be able to do that on time. Sorry, I'm listening to you.
And grunge is kind of loose in that way, but punk can be loose. Like punk can be tight and punk can be loose. Punk is very and we talk about it all the time. We know what it is when we see it, but it is pretty undefined in a lot of ways. Even like you think of punk guitar as something that's very defined, but even when you think about it for about 5 minutes, not exactly. It's actually undefined more so than being specific. It's weird, but at the same time, punk's very definitional. I mean, guitar is definitely. I don't know if you can have a punk band with, except for like folk and that stuff, without a guitar. Like I don't know that exists though.
No, either. Even folk punk stuff has to have an acoustic guitar,
string instrument.
Good.
Yeah.
A banjo. You may as well be a guitar if it's a banjo, in my opinion. I should have put up a poll for this week's video. I've done that recently a few times. Like, hey, what do y'all think? Because I would love to get some feedback from our viewers and just say, like, hey, what do you guys think? What do you like value in a guitarist for a punk band? And what do you think that so and so and yada yada and all that stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like, because this is a very interesting conversation we're fixing to have. I do feel like I'm going to learn some stuff from you. I do think that punk rock guitarists aren't necessarily. I agree with most of everything you were saying. Is what I'm trying to say here. I think that the bass player is very important. The drummer is probably the most important. I mean, look at how much I commented on. I won't be disrespectful, but look how much I commented on Rancid's new album and how just insane the drums are on that record. I was just ranting and raving about it for, I don't know, dude, quite some time. I still think that was a game changer for that band. Was that this album was Brandon's album? Like you were referring to it as Brandon's record, and I think that matters. But finding a quality, I think the one thing I did that I'm not gonna say I even disagree with it, but the one thing that I think a little different about it than you is that I think while you can hide a shitty guitarist in a punk band, it is extremely noticeable when one that has a lot of talent is put into the mix, because and we'll get to a few of these, but some of them, man, you're like, okay, that's literally what I was thinking of right now. Is Hefe. But
so, you notice that when you go see a band, when you think a band has really good equipment or that their sound guy is really good, and sometimes it's not that, it's just they can actually play. And what's great is when they can actually play, but they're like actually punk rockers, so they know how to. Because there's a lot of like good guitar players that like know power chords and can play and just don't sound like it, and it's weird. There is a certain, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a mental thing or there's a certain thing to make punk sound like punk, and you can the difference, and I don't know what that is, but
guitar tone and ability to write a catchy hook is more important for a punk rock guitarist than any technical ability, in my opinion. I think that if you can write, like, that's why you have albums actually called 3 Chords and the Truth. Those dudes aren't technically proficient at their guitar necessarily. No, I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not like, what's that band? Periphia or whatever it's called, where the guy's just Periphery, whatever that band is, where the guys, it's like mostly instrumental songs, and he's just like arpeggio sweeps and shit, and like those guys aren't typically in punk bands. Those guys are typically in bands that will get them, they get that spotlight's on that one dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and those guys would be like wasted in punk. Like it's good that those guys don't join punk bands because like their talent would be kind of wasted. I mean, like now you have certain like progressive punk and stuff like that is kind of I'm not really into it, but I think people do. It tends to morph into other types of music because it just gets like, at what point it's a derivative of punk more so than like a form of punk. But yeah, if you're that level of guitarist, like as much as I love punk, and like for people like Hefe, it worked out like for his career, but that was kind of a unique situation. Generally, I would say like you're better off if that's your talent level, you're probably not going to get showcased as much in punk unless you are unique, unless you bring something to the table, which there's also a lot of great musicians in punk. So it's not to say that they're all bad, and that's where you get so many of the different flavors and styles, is these guys that sometimes come from these other places and have to, punk is kind of militant. You gotta kind of come to punk, you gotta come to our level sometimes for these great musicians.
Yeah. Well, let's start the conversation about some specific people. I've got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wrote down 8 while we were talking.
Okay.
Two, I think won't take very long to talk about because I talk about them frequently. One is one that's not famous at all, so people won't really know, but I want to talk about him for a minute just because I know him. And then two, I don't think are even going to qualify as punk rock. So like my list is very interesting. So I would like to be on the back end of this because I don't have a lot to say about any of it, and I think we'll agree on some of them, and we can talk about them in tandem. So
okay, so I kind of have about a top 9. I have my notes up here, and I have the number 10 and the cursor's blinking on there. So I don't know what I was attempting to type there on 10, but I was agonizing over it a little bit because mine kind of turned into a little bit of sampling of punk rock guitarists. Because I found myself like this list, I think would be a little easier to make with it, like with stricter parameters. I think if you were doing like top 10 fat guitars, top 10 or top 10 skate, top 10 pop, because I think that actually defines a lot of this because there's like good guitarists in these different.
I don't think I could even make one of those lists.
No,
I don't. But I mean, we're different people, so I mean, like the way that you approach this is a little different than the way I approach it. I much like a broader swath. I don't care about. I'm not as specific as you are in most of my stuff, but like
categorizing,
and also I never got into fat bands really. Like I like a handful of them, but I like more modern fat bands than I do old school fat bands. I think. I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just saying I'm pretty sure I like more now than I did back in the day.
Yeah, probably. And I think I was that spot felt like a fat spot, but I didn't know who exactly to put on there because here's the thing with that. I really do like the fat guitar sound, although we think of the fat sound more as a drum sound. Like that's kind of more what you're thinking.
Do you? I don't.
What really? I think
guitar. I have a very specific guitar sound.
Oh really?
I think it's probably more like a package than it is a single instrument, to be honest. Maybe, I wouldn't think of drums, but I'm not a drummer, never have been. I don't. I like whenever I can hear drums and it's like something that I go, oh wow. I'm usually really stoked about that because that's not the way I listen to music. So when I can pick out drums and go, damn, these drums are impressive, I'm usually pretty ecstatic about that. So sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to be rude.
No. But I think part of the package though is where I was going with it. Like the other part of that though is that we talk about is that kind of metally riffage, but in a punk styling that so many of those like skate bands have and those fat bands specifically have. So I really just couldn't narrow it down in the time that I think if I would have spent a little bit more time on it, I would have put, obviously I love the way the Propaganda guitar sounds. I don't need to tell you over and over again how much I love like No Use for a Name and Lagway would probably win that one.
Think so?
Of all of that ones. But then again, like the No Use guitars kind of is in the Foo Fighters now. Not to say like that doesn't really mean anything, but I'm saying like they've had a lot of talent.
It does. It does. Look, I'm not a big Foo Fighters fan, but I'm not gonna sit here and act as if those guys don't have extremely high standards and they wouldn't just pick some dude because they were friends with them. It would have to be a qualified.
No, and it is, but it's also like I'm saying like his performances like in No Use don't necessarily like put him on the list, although he's clearly like that level of talent. And like the guitar
it does matter. It does matter like what you brought to the table as in like your catalog.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great guitarists that like took a stop in punk for a while too, but not necessarily would make the list. So that's kind of my best of the other one that I didn't write down was Warren Fitzgerald of the Vandals, more for that kind of silly lead guitar kind of stuff, but he mixes it in with the kind of chaos that the Vandals are creating. He's so much more of a showman though. He's kind of like an Angus Young figure, like from AC/DC. He's more like that with the Vandals than I think of it as actually like a good guitar player. At number 9 though, that we've talked about him a few times, I put Hefe on the list. Now Hefe was kind of like a funky one for me because I was like, is he really like a great punk guitarist? And like, I guess not necessarily because like he's like a great guitarist, but it's like, is he like this legendary punk guitar? But I'm like, wait a minute. My whole thesis on NoFX is that like the good NoFX, and not to say S&M Airlines and Ribbed are bad because I like a lot of that stuff, but like the version of NoFX is to me like starts when Hefe gets there because his ability on guitar to me raised the level of that entire band so much. So he's absolutely one of the great punk rock guitarists, even though if maybe I was like, was he really like innovative and that kind of thing? But like, yes, he is because he fits that description of he plays better. He sounds better. They all sound better. The band sounds better.
Right.
His quality rubbed off on them. And he adds a lot of unique flavor to it because he allows like Melvin and those guys to just be those straight rhythm kind of traditional punk rock guitars. And you can add all that flavor. So NoFX has NoFX has kind of a monotone sounding singer, but a very unique voice. And then they got a lot going on. And part of that, a lot going on is Hefe and everything he's doing on the guitar.
I would say that he's important for a lot of reasons, and I would say that he's great for a lot of reasons. And one of those reasons is it shows you that maybe you should not be so stubborn about getting some shitty punk rock guy to play in your band. Maybe you should find somebody that knows how to play the guitar. Let that guy become a punk rocker. Because, dude, let's face it, we're not all born with mohawks. I mean, I didn't even discover the genre until I was in high school almost. So, you know, who am I to judge somebody for when they became a fan of the music? Right. And I think that El Hefe is one of the handful of the most memorable guitarists in punk rock. I would put him above more influential guys, just solely based on the fact that when you think of NoFX, the first thing you think of is Fat Mike. But the second thing you think of is the fucking guitar leads, dude. That shit is incredible, man. How he can put such fast, catchy guitar leads without it sounding like a metal band. Like, it's incredible. He's able to do that. It doesn't sound like a metal band, bro. It sounds like a punk band still.
Well, think of like how much like those Slayer solos suck because they're going too
terrible.
Fast. They are terrible. Like, I'm pretty sure Kerry King can play a solo, but no one can play a solo at that speed. You know what I mean? Like you got to do it kind of the way like Iron Maiden does it. Yeah,
there's like one note nonsensical.
It feels rushed. It doesn't feel fast, and that's a good way of describing where, because Hefe can kind of color. He brings in like that metallic side to him. That was his background, where in like metal music and funk music and that kind of stuff. And he really sort of brings that without like NoFX really ever sounding like metal or funk or any of that. Then that's kind of his talent too. Is like there is something to be said too about fitting into punk as well as he did as well. Like, it's not like he doesn't come to NoFX and now NoFX like sounds like shit too, or sound like a completely like, different band. They just sound like they just got this upgrade from one album to the next.
That's what training does, is it makes you be able to go and fit the job. He was a trained guitarist, so he was able to slide into a given position and be like, oh yeah, I fit very well here. It just so happened that he was also like a funny, charismatic dude, and so the punk rock community eventually was accepting.
He's a punk, but like he was in my opinion, he just kind of didn't listen to the music because he, like everything about it, like he's very punk rock and like it's
I've always been of the mindset that punk and being punk are very different things. So you can be punk rock without being a punk rocker.
And like, and he notes it was a culture shock coming into punk, but I think he saw the value in it too. Like he was like, again, like he was already in big bands that were not working out and he wanted to be a NoFX. And there's two guys on this list that have that exact same story. And I think, I think that's
NoFX.
No, but they have that,
I know,
that same story of like, I turned down this. Now it's a little bit different. I've talked about it a little bit before. Hefe's band, his lead singer make it. He didn't, but like Hefe could have just been a studio musician probably and lived a really like comfortable life. Like instead, he's famous and infamous and lived kind of had probably uncomfortable, literally on tour with NoFX. But it paid out. Like talk about it working out. It worked out for him.
Hefe's awesome, and that is one of the ones that was on my list.
All right. Number 8's not going to be on your list because you already complained about this band off air, so I'm pretty sure it's not going to be on your list. But we got to talk about it. Billy Joe of Green Day, I have at number 8. Now,
okay, let me clarify.
Okay,
I didn't complain about Green Day.
No, you did not.
I complained about their fans that are telling me that Saviors is a bona fide classic already. Bro, the album has been out less than a month. It is not a classic, dude. Calm down. It's not a masterpiece. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's good though. I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's not, but come on, man. Like, that's so ridiculous. The new Neck Deep album is the best pop punk album of all time. What are you talking about?
I thought you were being serious. I was like, okay, wow, that's
not even remotely serious.
I was like, well, we gotta change format to discuss this. Okay, so Billy Joe of Green Day. For a few reasons. Here's the thing about Green Day. Like, one thing no one can ever dispute, as you were saying, like, what happens when you put really good musicians, but they absolutely are, they're trying to do punk rock. Green Day is a perfect example of that because all three of those guys, they're not like these musicians with handicaps the way a lot of like punk bands kind of come through, but their original genre is punk. So it's like these really talented musicians who wanted to do punk rock from the start. And with the guitar specifically for Billy Joe, it's a few things. the solo, the lead stuff, it is what it is. It's not bad. Obviously, it's pretty good. But to me, he constructs songs through guitars and melodies that are just really good songs that are made through the power of the guitar. It's very basic in a lot of ways, but it's like he's got like the thing that like people say about like Kurt Cobain, like, did he know theory, but he knows how to like create this beautiful, like almost like piano type music. Well, I think Billy Joe actually has that. And Billy Joe knows a little bit of theory, and it's been debated how much he's learned over time and stuff like that. But he has such a sense for just like melody. I feel like of almost everyone else in punk rock, he's the guy I'd want to like score a soundtrack sort of, if like very generic. And I think he does that through dirty punk rock kind of sloppy guitar. Because if you look at his stuff, it's actually sloppy, but it's sloppy in a good way. Because you don't think of Green Day as a sloppy band, but a lot of that play.
I was going to say I don't really understand that, but
it's not sloppy, but loose. You would say loose, but that's also the tightness. But it's kind of a contradiction what I was saying, because you have two other like old world musicians with him in that. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of gaps that the other one fills in, and it creates the sort of controlled chaos that Green Day has. And it's like one of those things. Like there's some albums where like maybe the guitar is this or the guitar is that, but it's always a focus because it's a pretty important part of that band. It's a pretty important part of the sound and of his whole thing. Now I would say though, I think the guitar sounds good on a lot of their albums, but they have played live with like 3 guitarists for about 25 years and have recorded and every band records with more guitars than what they have on stage. So some of what he does is the product of just like other musicians as well to make that sound. So that's why he sounds a little bit cleaner a lot of times than I think a lot of even like Mark Hoppus, who they do that, or Tom DeLonge, who they do that with as well. But they kind of let Tom sound a little more raw than what Billy Joe tends to sound like.
If I was going to put Billy Joe on the list, he would fall into the list of objective importance more so than somebody that I just really like. But I can concede to you that he is a top punk rock guitarist. Now, if you want to argue whether or not he's up in a punk band, that's up to the people in the comments to argue about. I don't really give a shit. But I do think that he wasn't on my list, but he probably should have been. I just wasn't thinking that direction. My list is more, I've got a couple of people that are really important, and then everybody else is just stuff that I really like a lot. So, but Billy Joe Armstrong, I mean, if you're going to tell me you're going to make a list of punk rock guitarists that are either good or important or both, and you're going to just exclude him from that, that's pretty wild to me. You'd have to have like maybe a top 3. Maybe he wouldn't fall into that, but outside of that, he's very much a must talk about in this scenario, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a guy that there's not like a handicap being hit in there or something throughout the course of the music. Now, number 7, from like this nice, beautiful pop to just sort of punch you in the face, skate punk, I have Fletcher Drake at number 7. I love Fletcher's guitar tone. He is, as far as tone, it's him and one other guy that I'm pretty sure they're like really good friends that I have on this list of like, those are my 2 favorite tones. But I love the crunch of Pennywise so much. Like we talked about Jim a lot last weekend. He fits. So I think it's really like Pennywise rhythm section just sounds really good. So they've had 2 bass players. They've had the one drummer for what. So Fletcher though blends in with that. And again, this is, I mean, they're a 4-piece, but there's only 3 instruments. It's bass, drums, and guitar. And it's Fletcher's filling a lot of that space, and that stuff sounds good and it sounds big. And that tone is like, to me, like that's punk rock. Like, you guys want to ask me what is punk rock? It's like Fletcher's guitar playing. That is right. That is kind of like punk rock. I struggled
with that one. So I think my list is probably not right. We'll talk about it in a minute, a little bit more. But I struggled with, should I have him on my list or not? I kept thinking Pennywise, but I never wrote it down. I don't really know why, because I think if you said, hey, what's your top 3 guitar tones? I think they would be in the mix. Like even top 3, I think they'd be in the mix. So I probably should have written Pennywise down. And I do owe them the respect to bring them up in this conversation. I think the lack of like guitar solos and like intricate work, for whatever reason, really bothered me with putting them on the list, even though that's what we've already established is not something that's necessarily important. So, I think Fletcher absolutely needs to be on the list. 1 second, please.
Yeah.
Can you put it in here for me, please?
Yeah.
You can do the bathroom if you want.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Rob.
Hey.
He says hello. Yeah, sorry, I gotta get a little bit of coffee, and I didn't know how else to do it. So text the wife and be like, "Can you please do this for me?"
No, I got you.
So I'm like full on addicted to coffee now. Like it's bad.
Welcome to the club.
It's bad, bro. I'm drinking like 4 cups a day, maybe more. Yeah, dude. Like and I put hella shit in my coffee. Like I don't drink bitter ass.
Oh, I've traded black coffee.
I don't know. Black coffee is probably very far down the road for me. I mean, I might be like another 10 years before I drink black coffee.
No, since I was a kid.
You think I'm ever going to be able to drink black coffee?
Maybe. You know what? You will probably decide to quit coffee before you get there.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Because I'm already trying to quit coffee because I'm like, man, what's going on with my weight this week?
Yeah, it's not good for you.
I don't think it's the coffee.
No, it's not good for you at all?
Well, no, coffee's not the best. Like just drinking coffee excessively is just not good for you. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, everything I do in excess. So would you take that plate so I don't knock it on the floor? Yes. Thank you. All right, I love you. I gotta get back to work.
I love you.
Five minutes later. But yeah, I think that Pennywise deserves more recognition and more credit than I was prepared to give them initially. But I want to be very clear. The whole week I was like, Pennywise, 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 Pennywise. Because I was thinking of a few bands, and it was like Pennywise, Offspring, and somebody else that has a very similar sound. And I was like, no, dude, it's clearly Pennywise. But I think the point is that not the point, but a point is that we talk about these lists all the time. And if you're paying attention, we cover like maybe 25 bands out of all the bands. And that's all we talk about of these bands. I think that should be noted. And that's why I go to the length of like, let me put a younger unknown band on my channel. Let me put artist spotlight series I'm starting to work on with just bands that are from different parts of the world. And maybe they're just not known yet. Because like, dude, if I don't do that, all I'm going to talk about are the great ones. And the great ones are the great ones, whether people like them or not. If you don't like them because you don't think they're punk, or if you don't like them because, well, I don't know, whatever reason, you know what I'm saying? But they're the great ones for a reason. And I think Fletcher. I'm literally reading a Fletch book, but or listening to it, whatever. But I do believe Fletcher is deserving of a slot. And I think it's funny because people think of him almost more as a personality than a guitarist.
Like like a front man, even though he's not the singer. But yeah,
at least in the experience that I've got with listening to people talk about him,
kind of the face of the band in a lot of ways.
It never comes up as like, oh, Fletcher's this awesome guitarist. It's like, yeah, that guy's a psycho. He's drinking and he's eating Pringles so he can use the can to drink with, and just gnarly shit like that. But anyway,
well, I think like Fat Mike has said, like he's the most destructive, big-hearted person you've ever met. Like heart of gold, and will tell you straight up when you're screwing up and all this stuff, but just is chaos. Like not I don't think he's like a malicious guy more, but I think he's even now just kind of chaos constantly. Like, and we need those people around who are
I mean, chaos. I don't know the guy, but he does come off that way. I've seen him on enough footage to be like, Fletcher is kind of fucking crazy. I don't know if I'd want to tour with that guy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, and what's bad is it doesn't seem like he actually has a problem. You know what I mean? Like I don't get that he's like damn it, he's probably not an alcoholic. Like he's just like this. Like
he's fucking humongous, dude.
He just goes this pace all the time. And like remember in the F-Word documentary, Jim said it, like guys like Fletcher could just do this forever and it doesn't affect them. And
no, he did say that, and I totally agreed with him.
Like, I was like, you know, people like that in life. Like there's like old guys like, how are you alive, dude? And they're like perfectly healthy. And some people just have that, like the biology or what they just kind of have. I think Fletcher probably because he doesn't even look that he looks like a guy in his 50s. Like he just looks like a normal dude. For as hard of a lifestyle as that dude's probably lived, he's just kind of Teflon.
Yeah, dude, Fletcher's awesome, man. Pennywise is great.
Shout out to Pennywise.
They have one of the best guitar tones in the history of punk rock, dude. You hear a song and you can go, oh, that's Pennywise. Like
so clean too. Like
3 seconds in.
And not clean like clean tone, but like clean like
no, you know what I mean. Sounds it's like, so
it's
good,
not muddy.
man. Like,
yeah.
No, it's like a. There's no like weird like reverb. There's no weird. It's just like a distorted, like clean. I don't know how to say
pure,
clean. Yeah, the right word.
Pure, I feel pure, like in a sense of punk, like whatever a punk guitar is, like in its purest form is like what Fletcher does.
it goes so well with how tight that band is too, because they're tight and they're fast, bro. Oh, I'm thinking, it's just so like matter of fact. Like everything that they do is so matter of fact
very
with that
efficient.
band.
Yeah,
like audibly, like very. Oh, dude, powerful stuff.
Absolutely. Now the next one is kind of a little loose, actually, almost in the opposite end, and it's a band I know you do not like, but East Bay Ray of the Dead Kennedys at number 6. I think for guitar specifically, well, here's the thing about the Dead Kennedys. What I like about them is like their high pitched nature, so to speak.
Okay.
Like they bring a lot of that to that, and a lot of that comes through their guitar playing. When you think of like the Dead Kennedys are just they're more.
It's like surfy.
I've heard it is, and so his core style was actually like rockabilly and stuff like that. Like that's his sort of that's his base discipline coming into the crazy world of 80s punk and LA and all that kind of stuff.
He might come up again later then, because I got somebody on my list.
Yeah, and I just think like and we don't have to spend too much time on it necessarily, but it's that loose, tight feeling. Like, cause here's the thing about Dead Kennedys, like their music, it doesn't have like that big sound that like we were just talking about with like Pennywise, but it still has that 80s punk, like kind of chuggy, move it along forward, but it's like slow like that 80s punk though too. Like it's not, it has a progressive forward, but it's not. The 80s stuff's a little bit slower. Like, yes, there's the hardcore stuff, but a lot of that 80s LA stuff kind of just sounds like drunk people that are a little bit on half speed. A lot of it.
I would agree with that.
And the Dead Kennedys is like the good part of that. Like a lot of that music that like bands that tried to sound like the Dead Kennedys, I think really sucked in the late 80s. Like that was before like Bad Religion kind of came and saved us all with like melody and stuff. But like the best version of the proto stuff to me is like the Dead Kennedys, because the Dead Kennedys really are kind of, they fit that mold. Like, are they music or are they art? I think there's actually like a discussion to be that they almost work better, especially the original version, as like performance art than they do as actual music.
I actually like that. Whatever you call that. I agree.
Analogy.
Analogy. Yeah. I think that because they get called a hardcore punk band a lot, just in general. And I've never understood that, because I think of them as pretty tame musically. Now lyrically and like what their beliefs are and how they behave,
activism and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But like just musically, I'm like, I guess. I mean, they're not even like remotely fast. Like
and they're like silly too. They're not even as serious. Like they do have the serious, but they have like songs about like hamburgers being good and stuff like that too. Like
dude, we need to make a video about like a podcast where we do like top 5 shitty vocalists, so I can put Jello Boffer at the very top of that list. I hate that guy's vocals, man. Like
I like it, but I completely like that. To me, that's a very reasonable take. Like that's not a contrarian. Like I understand what you're saying. Like if you don't like those vocals, like I get it. Like you're wrong, but I get it.
So yesterday was the 42nd anniversary of Bad Brains' self-titled album.
Yeah.
And I don't like Bad Brains, so I was like, well, why do I not like them? And I was like, well, because when I was 15, my dad bought me a record by them and I listened to it and didn't like it. And so I went through and listened to it again in its entirety. And like, that was my biggest complaint, was his vocals were so fucking terrible.
People love that specifically for the vocals and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. Like, I just don't get it. But I will say that it was another album that had 15 songs, 10 of which I enjoyed. So that I thought that was pretty cool. I was very much not expecting that. But they fall in the same like category as the Dead Kennedys do for me, with they have like some songs that I like. I'm not gonna ever like try to lie and be like, I'm a big fan of this band. I think it'd be very transparent and people would very, very quickly see that I was full of shit. And I think that's like the definition of a poser, is like, I like what I like, and it is what it is. I'm not going to act as if I like something I don't, just to impress a bunch of people that I don't really give a shit if I impress anyways. My point is that they have similar guitar sounds. Now the guitar playing is different, but I think that's more of a statement about like the era that this stuff came around in, because back then the recording was different. The money to record was a lot harder to come by. So I think that all that guitar playing to me is hard to differentiate, even within like the same couple of groups. It's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, this sounds like this is this. without going, let me hear the vocals too. And then I can hear, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I had a much more important point when I started that talk, and then I just kind of lost it. I was thinking of the album. I was trying to remember some of the songs that I really liked about it, because there was some that I really dug. And you threw me off when I said Bad Brains, and you went, yeah. I didn't realize you liked them that much.
Yeah. So here's the funny thing about you and I that I think the audience needs to understand. You're more into hardcore elements of punk, just generally. I'm more into older punk than you are. More generally,
by a lot.
And it's funny because you just wouldn't. People, I don't think people would assume that like I'm the Black Flag and Adolescence guy of the two of us. You know what I mean?
I like the Adolescents. I'm not a big Black Flag fan. Wow.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, bro. But yeah, I just never. So quick deviation from our conversation for a second. Like the 80s punk rock stuff, almost as like an entire subgenre, I never could get into it. And when I did get into it, it was later in life, and I started getting more into like the UK 80s stuff. Like I was more into like Oi, and because that stuff's directly related to street punk, which is what I love the most. So I found it very easy to fall into like, oh, I like, you know, I didn't like The Business when I was a kid very much, but I love that band now. I didn't like Coxbar that much when I was a kid, but I love that band now. But if you just speed those bands up a little bit, you end up getting all the bands that I like. And so I think that's why I like those bands now, is because I can see the influence that they had on the bands that I love. Whereas all the stuff that I consider like borderline hardcore, Bad Brains, Minor Threat, Black Flag, to me, those were just other punk bands when I was a kid. But they were of the I don't know how to say it. There's a sound that they've got that I never liked. I think you were talking about it a minute ago. There's like a particular guitar tone, what we've already been talking about, but like there's a particular sound where they're like very avant-garde, and you
just don't like that.
I think that's really what, because Black
we always bring it up, like every week we bring it up, and you're kind of that's a common theme generally.
Is that what it is, you think? Because I am trying to learn more about what I like.
I'm shocked you weren't blown away by Bad Brains, kind of, but it makes more sense thinking about like generally what you like.
Like blown away how? Like impressed?
No, I would just think you would like I just think you would like something.
Oh, like didn't like it.
Like so you like a lot of the stuff that stuff, like the guys that listen to that stuff and the music they made, you like a lot of that stuff. Like you like a lot of guys that wear Bad Brains t-shirts and like Fugazi t-shirts and stuff like that.
And you know what's funny about that is that's where you can decipher whether or not you're a real one. Are you going to be like, oh shit, that means I have to like this? Or are you just going to be like, it is what it is? Because a lot of people aren't secure with their own spot in the world or the scene or the whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't like The Clash. I actively dislike that band. I'd rather listen to Bad Brains any fucking day than The Clash. I'd rather listen to Dead Kennedys, Black Flag. I hate The Clash. Dude, there's like maybe 3 songs that I like, and it's all the ones that, of course you like those. They're the radio songs, because those are the only ones that were catchy. I never understood the appeal. I just didn't. Like, as people, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
As a musical group, I just never got it. But my favorite band, that's like the shit that he wants to be so bad. It is what it is, man. I don't understand it any more than anybody else does, but I refuse to like be like, well, I guess I have to like this. I don't understand that. And there's so many people like that, dude. But you know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
Like our scene is full of those people that when you go through their record crate, you don't see the Bad Brains albums, but when you go through their t-shirts, you do see them. And it's brand new shirts that they've worn once or twice, but they only wear it when they go to the show. You'll never see that in my closet, man. I got bands of shirts of bands that I listen to. Street Power, as an example, not a huge band. I'm friends with the singer now. He's awesome. And, you know, he plays in CMI as well. So, like, it's people I really like. And so I wear the shirt. I'm not going to be, I don't know, man. There's so much fraudulence in that, dude. It's just so frustrating because I think there's plenty of bands to love. You don't have to like what everybody, I think if everybody just liked what they actually like, then a lot of these bands wouldn't be as big as they are. Because I think bands like Black Flag and Bad Brains and Minor Threat were important then. And at that point in time, there was a thing that they were a necessity. And you can't duplicate this. Brad Logan has talked about that. You can't duplicate it. This is why reunion stuff is kind of stupid. Mm-hmm. A Bad Brains reunion and it wouldn't be the same. So my only point is that I think that stuff is quality. It is great, and it does belong in this Hall of Fame. That doesn't mean that by today's standards, they're still what people sometimes say they are. And I mean that with respect and reverence. I don't mean to be rude. I just don't understand saying things just because it's tradition. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is right there. Maybe I just buck the system. I don't really care about tradition. Never have. And this is sort of tradition. And I just never been about that life, I guess. Wow, we're doing like punk rock therapy over here.
We really are. We're like that because at the same time, like, it's funny because like people generally don't believe me sometimes when I'm into those bands because they think like, no, that's you're weird. Like, you're the Blink-182 guy. You're the, you're.
Well, you can't be both. What?
But like, how do you think I found like either one? You know what I mean? Like, and so I have a very parallel story with why I like a lot of that 80s stuff. It's not because I grew up in the 80s scene. It's the bands that I like, the Pennywise, the NoFX's, all those guys. Their favorite bands are the Adolescents and Agent Orange and Black Flag and that kind of thing. It's actually very, very silly. It really speaks to some of the contrast of our modern tastes, and of course, it all links up at Rancid because that's where all of our roads are. That's the common thread.
Yeah,
with all this.
So, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to move on the list, so go ahead with your next.
Yeah. Point. Well, last thing I'll say, then we will move on with the list. Is that I think that this says a lot about just like who I am as a person. Because if you think about it, like I don't like tradition. I do just buck the system, and that includes the system I'm a part of. Like I am so, and it's not intentional, man. I just don't care. I'm in my own little world. I do my own thing. I like what I like, and I've never been one to be told what to enjoy. Like whether that's, hey, you stand over here. I'm sure as shit gonna go stand over there. Hey, man, be quiet. I'm not. Hey, man, talk a bunch. I'll clam up. It's just kind of who I am. It's not always a good thing, but I think that it does bother me sometimes that I don't like these bands more than I do. But at the end of the day, man, you only got so much time on this earth. Listen to what you want to listen to.
Absolutely. Number 5 is a guy we had the 80s. Let's go back to the 70s with Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols.
Come on, bro.
What about it? What is your counter argument to the guitarist of the Sex Pistols, like the tightest rhythm guitarist in the early punk, who had like the first guy to have that higher pitch tone in his songs to contrast with Johnny Rotten? Like, come on, yes, absolutely, Steve Jones at number 5.
Sure.
Okay, just because it didn't happen after 1991, I'm sorry, but yes, it did.
Well, happen. I mean, it has to be post 91 to matter. You know that
exactly. When your favorite band Nirvana released their album, that's when music started.
Oh man, no, like okay, so my reason for being like, oh come on, is because there wasn't anything that I thought personally is spectacular about that guitarist. I don't think I think you could have put anybody in that position and they would have been the same guitarist, and that's because back then the only people they would have gotten to, because that band wasn't organically formed really, they were like manufactured, so there wasn't any reason for them to go out and find some authentic punk rock guy who sucked. They tried that with their bass. Look what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, there wasn't a lot of material. I didn't think that he was spectacular. And like I said, I Googled this because I was racking my brain, and everybody was like, he came up a lot. And
yeah, he's kind of the default answer. Like when we thought like he was not going to be number 1.
And maybe that's why I'm so like, meh.
I was like, well, Steve Jones, that's like, when I think all the things that we're saying with the rhythm guitarist and still able to put like the leads. And I think part of what it is though too, is there really wasn't good, like noticeable good guitarists yet in punk. He's the first guy you sort of think of as like a good guitar. And yeah, the band isn't like, yes, the band was manufactured together, but it's not like it's a little misleading to say like they didn't just bring in a bunch of like Hollywood studio.
No. That's not what I didn't mean that.
No, but that's an accurate assessment that the band is actually, they are Malcolm McLaren's experiment. Yes.
You can't. True. But I mean, you said there weren't a lot of good punk guitarists yet, and I'm thinking like, well, there wasn't a lot of punk bands, but I don't consider him necessarily a good punk guitarist. That's kind of my point, is that I hear the Sex Pistols, and are the songs good? Do I like them? Of course, yeah, of course I do. I mean, but so I like the Ramones too, and they weren't that good at their instruments. I mean,
I think though Steve Jones is very essential to that Sex Pistols sound though too. Like that's part of what
that does matter. That does matter because we were talking about tone earlier with Fletcher and stuff. So I mean, and I'm just arguing for the sake of the show.
Aren't necessarily my
do
favorite,
I really care?
They are, but they aren't. You know what I mean? But it's just because I tend to like it's again. I feel like I'm more of American punk, and you're more into like UK punk. So like generally when we have these discussions, you're more Team Pistols, and I'm usually more like Team Ramones. You know what I mean?
I mean, wait. What?
I feel like you're more in line. You're more an offshoot of the Pistols, where I'm more of an offshoot of the Ramones. Just generally how we look at punk and that sort of thing.
Huh. I don't see that.
You don't see that?
No, I like.
I just view you as more in that lineage of like
maybe with clothing, but not with music.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think maybe with like the aesthetically, yeah, probably. But like musically, no, dude, I'm far more into like shit, dude. Most of the bands I like are like Ramones ripoffs. Like if you go through the stuff I've listened to the past like 2 or 3 weeks, just like what did you listen to that was outside of something you were working on a video for?
Yeah,
it's like Teenage Bottle Rocket, fucking Teen Idols, stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff. I even dipped into Screeching Weasel a little bit. Just I don't even know why.
You're straight up in Ramones core right now.
Yeah, bro. I'm like having like a real bad time with it, dude.
You gonna rip out that Riverdale's record pretty soon?
Riverdale's are pretty good.
It is. That's why I brought it up. I know you like them, so that's why I brought it
up. Yeah, I'm like thinking like, damn, do I have time to listen to it tonight? That's what I was thinking of. Like, do I have time to listen to that?
That's a good like Tuesday night, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, so a guy we've talked around, and the guy who wins our showdown for greatest guitar tone, in my opinion, is, of course, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, Noodles of the Offspring at number 4.
Really?
Yeah. So it was like him and Fletcher. I kind of can't disaggregate them that much, although I just look at Noodles has more differentiation like in the stuff that he's done, because his band does more different types of song, and he's probably like a better guitar player just overall than Fletcher, but they sound very similar. I like Noodles' tone better, and I think I don't know. I
like his tone better.
Yeah,
I much prefer Fletcher's, but not by a lot.
Yeah,
I
think like if you were trying to play guitar and you got Fletcher's tone, you could play Offspring songs. You know what I mean? Like I think it works. It's interchangeable, and so I think they're very similar. I just think Noodles kind of does more, so that's where I kind of gave him a little bit of the edge, and I do like the tone a little bit more, although I like the songs that like Fletcher is a part of more so, but that's hard to like, is that because I like Pennywise quite a bit more than I like
funny,
Offspring,
because you said he does more, so I like it, or however you said that, and I was thinking the exact opposite, like he does more, so I don't like it as much. Like I do like the simplicity of Fletcher playing more,
and that's generally my opinion on guitarists, but I think Noodles is not as frivolous, I think, even though there's a lot going on in Offspring songs. I think I generally tend to like what he does, and like when he's the one adding some of that.
Is he the lead on Offspring, or is Dexter? No, he's the lead, isn't he?
He's the lead. Yeah. I mean, Dexter's a singer. He's singer. Yeah. It's not one of those weird metal bands that does like the lead singer also does lead. It's so hard, like insane.
Yeah, there's no reason for me to ever try to do something stupid like that.
Oh yeah, that is crazy. So yeah, and we talked about the Offspring a couple of weeks ago, but again, in the Offspring sound, my favorite part of that sound too, like, is Noodle. And Offspring's not one of my big bands, but like I think they generally sound pretty good. It's more, you and I'd more take issue with like their song selection and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I would say that my issue with the Offspring is that they made a career choice back in the late 90s that they kind of had to stick with. Mm-hmm. That if you ask them now, they probably don't regret it because it made them just millions and millions of dollars. But I bet you could get them drunk enough to where they'd be like, yeah, I kind of wish I just had less money and a better reputation. Like, money isn't everything, man.
I wonder, like, if they would have just waited and like Blink broke before them, they wouldn't have had to been as silly, and they could have been like this great like poppy punk band. Like, what if it just like happened a year differently, but like instead they're more like what Rancid did in '94, where they kind of stayed as a as a punk band. Like, history is weird, man. These things play out like in weird, like random things.
All this stuff is so just what's the word, like I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but like you change one thing, man.
Yeah, it's like a butterfly effect kind of.
Yeah. Dude, I'm like this conversation is being very weird to me because I'm like, we're talking and I'm just like thinking of other things because it's such a you've brought up. This is exactly why I wanted you to kind of take the lead on the conversation because you're saying things that I didn't even consider. We're not agreeing on everything, but it's not some kind of argument. Like I don't care that you have Steve Jones on your list. Like I just didn't think of him as somebody that I would put on. I didn't think he had enough music out there to qualify, to be honest.
That was hard generally about this list because there's some guys that like the thing about punk is like there's great legendary punk that's one album long. You know what I mean? And that's
well, yeah. I mean,
that's kind of hard.
We got a few of those. I mean, shit, Operation Ivy, Sex Pistols.
Yeah, like of like the Rants and stuff, Operation Ivy to me was the closest candidate as far as guitar specifically. Like that is where
really?
I kind of wanted to consider guitar. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I really did. With the with the ska stuff ridiculous. And all that. Yeah, like I just really thought that was of the
but that's not the stuff that makes. That's not the stuff that. Well, let's finish this conversation in a minute.
So, okay. Now, I have not cheated on the next two, but I'm going to be accused of it. But these are very, very funny the way I did this. So I had a lot to squeeze in at this point, and I found a way to do it in a very efficient way. So at number 3 is a man that we had to get out of the way so he could walk by at the Punk Rock Museum, and that, of course, is Greg Hetson. Now, the reason why I said I'm cheating is because, like, I feel like I'm using the Circle Jerks and Bad Religion here as two bands to showcase, but I am, so that's
but we weren't talking about bands, we're talking guitars, so you can absolutely have something like that going on. He's a prolific
guitarist, in the across the. But what I'm saying is, like, he's not a guy like there's a lot of guys that have played like in a lot of different bands, you know what I mean? But you wouldn't necessarily ascribe that catalog to them.
We're going to talk about Tim Armstrong in a few minutes, and he's played in a bunch of fucking bands. So I mean, that's the reason that Greg Hetson. So that's not the right statement. I'm trying to say it right without sticking my foot in my mouth. You finish.
No, but and so like, but yeah, it's like so like the current guitar, the guy that took his place in Bad Religion. I think Mike is I can't think. He's a great guitar, like a great guitarist. But like we don't think of him as like doing all the songs that Hetson.
Well, no, because he didn't write them.
No, yeah, and that's what it comes down. Now some of the early punk, it's kind of funny because there might be like 3 or 4 different versions of that same one, but that's a little bit different because they'll generally have different performances. But you look at all the early Circle Jerk stuff that Hetson is on.
Yeah,
Circle Jerk's not my favorite, but like I'm not gonna say I don't like it and don't think it's pretty awesome. But it's funny. Go back to early Bad Religion. They are billed as Bad Religion with Greg Hetson of the Circle Jerks because he is so much more famous than Bad Religion and so much more known in that early period.
That's awesome.
Then when you think of that Bad Religion sound, so I love Brett. Brett is one of the most important person in our like world. Like we're at like a list of people that are really important. Brett's in the top 5, right?
Top 3.
Yeah, the one thing Brett has admitted that he's not great at is necessarily like a great guitar player. Like he's a competent guitar player, but Brett's a songwriter. Brett's a lyric guy. Brett deals with arrangement.
Yeah,
that is what
I'm with that.
Does it. So when you think about like when a band upgraded, well, when Bad Religion really upgraded, if you look at it, there's a lot of stuff that happened, but Hetson joining is a big point. Them getting to have 2 guitarists, and that one of that guitarist being Greg Hetson. Now Hetson can do the simple like the solo stuff, like the traditional guitar stuff, but he also can do the really fast rhythm guitar stuff in the off-speed stuff, and it really essential to the whole sound that we listen to. Hetson being in Bad Religion and being in the Circle Jerks is influential, and just the total catalog. I think all the Bad Religion from the last album he's on is 2010. I don't remember if he's on the Christmas album, but so Suffer through the Christmas album, basically. I don't remember if he's on the Christmas album, but whatever, you can count that. So Bad Religion's whole career, except for the last 2 albums and Into the Unknown of the first 2 albums. So the whole meat of the Bad Religion career, that's one of the 2 guitars. And you're talking about from a performance, literally, this is not necessarily to do with his guitar playing, but when you would go to see Bad Religion, the best part of the show is the spastic guitarist who's playing all this stuff as he's bouncing around and doing all that from a live like visual perspective. That's not really what we're talking about here, but he also sort of qualifies on that one. Let me take a sip of my tea before.
No, you're good. I don't have a lot to say about that because this is another example of how we build our lists so different, because my lists rarely have anything to do with objectivity. Mm-hmm. I'm usually talking about what do I like, because that's kind of what we're here for. We're not really here to talk about, or at least I'm not here to talk about I review stuff, so I'm reviewing guitar players, and I agree that he is an important. Like, if my list was the top 10 most important guitar players in punk, he would likely be on that list. But it really wasn't the most important. It was just, who do I like? What are the top 10 guitarists? Now, that's where you have to figure out, what do you mean by that? Like, is it do you mean the top 10 most important, or do you mean the top 10 because you like their songs? And that's usually the direction that I'm headed in. I got a couple on this list that are going to be a little different. I think this list is probably a little bit different based on it being guitarists and not like albums or whatever. But yeah, I keep saying the same thing in circles, man. I don't mean to. It's the only thought that's coming to my mind is that, boy, I tell you, man, I think our lists are just way different. And the criteria that we're trying to meet is very clearly different, because, when I get to my little list here, it's the very first one I talk about, you're gonna go, oh, okay, you'll see. So, yeah.
So here's why I'm gonna get accused of cheating.
I didn't offer anything with that the whole entire 2 minutes.
great output there.
Shit, dude. I'm like, this conversation
the bathroom break we all needed.
This is harder for me than I thought, man. I don't ingest music the way that most people do, any more than I ingest movies the way people do. I never thought I'd have trouble coming up with a guitarist list, dude. And
it's bothering you, right?
It's annoying the shit out of me, because I feel like, man, am I just stupid? Like, I don't know. It's weird, bro. It really is bothering me, but sorry.
Okay. So number 2, I decided, and this is not like this is who I thought of pretty early on, but where I was going to put him is, I have Greg Ketson at number 3 because he's the second best guitarist to ever play a Bad Religion. I have at number 2 the best guitarist to play a Bad Religion, and that is Brian Baker. That's, like I said, I was going to do Baker and Hetson, then I'm realized these guys are in like 9 different bands total. They each deserve their own spot, because Brian Baker, his Bad Religion career, it's some of my favorite parts of Bad Religion, but he actually comes in 94. So he's actually he takes Brett's spot. So he's a lot of that major label stuff that people don't necessarily like. He's the guitarist for that, but he's also the guitarist of the 2000s revival stuff. So, but that alone is kind of like Hall of Fame level on its own. Plus he was like very good. Like Brett specifically was like, get him. He can do what I never could. And even I think it really says something about his guitar playing, is that Brett came back and the request was that Brian stay in the band, not just as a touring member, but as a full, like they are a 6-piece in the studio. Like they are, he's a full member, and he's a super talented guitarist, as we know from Dag Nasty and one of my older favorite bands of all time, Minor Threat, where he's also the guitarist in that band as well. So you talk about just one of the most prolific punk rockers of all time. Brian Baker definitely fits that. Like Bad Religion's kind of like the side gig in a way, even though he's a pretty important part of that sound and the last like 30 years of that band. He's huge in over, and he's the other guy I was going to say with Hefe. He's the guy that turned down the big money to take the risk to go. His
name kept coming up too.
So specifically with him again, so it's funny because you don't think like the guy that co-founded Minor Threat, you don't think of that guy would also be a prolific guitarist, but he is. Brian Baker, he's one of those guys. He's like trained like Hefe, but like started in punk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's got that level. So he was doing some studio stuff. Like he was like a rock star kind of, but like an unworking rock star in the early 90s. He actually got a gig to tour with REM, right? And coinciding with the offer to tour with Bad Religion.
That's awesome.
He chose Bad Religion, which, like, think about it, in 1994,
that's cool.
He chose Bad Religion over REM. And his reasoning was, I'm a punk rocker. I'm part of the classic fabric of punk rock.
That's what
one of the great punk rock
like,
bands asking me to be a guy. And probably selfishly, like, he knew he was like the best musician in the group anyway. You could split that. But anyway, the best guitarist that band had ever clearly had. He knew he was going to be that. And they were offering him, like, they weren't sugarcoating it. Like, you're not a hired gun. You're in Bad Religion. Whereas he would have initially made a lot more money with REM, but like he was just.
But he would have been a hired
gun. And when that tour ended,
basically,
does he come back? I don't know. And then like, and it's the 90s would have been a little bit different, but like it's a lot easier to get your, if you're going to do your Dag Nasty reunion or your Minor Threat reunion or whatever, when you're playing in Bad Religion versus the guitarist of REM, of the studio guitarist of REM. And he said like he had nothing against REM. He liked all the guys. He was kind of. after, because like you think about like Fugazi and all that DC hardcore stuff got romanticized like really quick. So the guys that were a part of it kind of became like these sort of pseudo celebrities that weren't like that famous. So he had that. Plus he was in.
They were like scene celebrities.
Yeah, and even in the early '90s, I think like that Discord stuff popped. Like Ian MacKaye really built that stuff to like as a brand a lot quicker than a lot of these other guys like did. You know what I mean? So those guys sort of got the benefit of. So Brian Baker had kind of always been a legend in punk rock for like the last 40 years, while also being the same age as all the guys that he's playing with. So he's not like,
isn't that weird?
High. Yeah, it's just it is like I told you the other day how like Green Day is younger than like Rancid and those guys, but I think of them as the older band, and it totally makes sense what I was saying. Like it's funny how just
are they younger than them, really?
Yeah, I think they're a few years like chronologically younger. They're a newer band than they are. But generally, you categorize like Green Day as kind of an older band than them. It's funny.
Wait, okay. Who's the newer band?
I'm talking about Green Day and Rancid. I'm doing that.
Yeah. Who's newer of the two?
So it's hard to say. Okay, so when do we count Sweet Children, or we count Green Day as the start of Green Day? So Green Day predates Rancid then, right? Because
I thought Green Day predated Rancid by a year or two.
Well, yeah, Green Day
doing like
plays
Operation Ivy stuff.
Green Day's first Gilman show is the farewell Gilman show. Yeah. Green Day.
So Green Day predates
Rancid. Yeah.
I was just like getting confused for a second. Anyway, it's whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just a conversation. But I thought that they were like the same exact age. I thought they were like almost the same exact age.
And they might be, but I think like in the scene, Billy Joe was kind of those were like the kids. Like how
you know what kind of
like Fat Mike tells a story that him and Mike Muir are driving around and there's a little kid in the back kicking. It's Billy Joe in the back of the car. You know what I mean? Like it's just could think about that compared to like the suicidal tendency guys and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, chronologically they're not dead, but I think like if I recall, like Billy Joe and Mike were from a little bit different part of town, so they weren't like as known as much, and they played a little popular. They were just thought of as a little more like juvenile.
Well, they were definitely not as revered back then as the other like dirtier, more.
Yeah, I think
don't know what to call it, man.
Well, and it might be in the Gilman scene too. I think like the first wave of like the Operation Ivy kids, even though those guys were kind of made fun of that, but there's still a lot of that original punk there. And I think the first real wave of Gilman is kind of like that Green Day wave of like the guys who listened to a little bit of that stuff and then got a little bit influenced. So it's really the East Bay sound, I think, a little more. I don't know how we got there from Brian Baker, but we went from DC to the East Bay.
Because we're just talking about music. That's what we do here. We just talk, and sometimes we ramble, especially me.
Okay, so now number one, this is what I was talking about, is the number one guy on my list never played a guitar solo as a rule in his band. And that is, of course, I'm talking about Johnny Ramone as number one. There was never, ever, 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 ever going to be another number one on this list for me than Johnny Ramone for a variety of reasons. One, you talk about like, is innovation to be considered? To me, innovation is a stat. Like that is like, if everyone did what you were doing, then what you did was probably pretty damn good, especially like if everyone who did it, I liked what they did, but the thing about it is, what's different about Johnny is no one ever actually replicated what he did. They just kind of tried to do their versions of it, which
you're not wrong about that.
Speak to how difficult it was and how unique it was. So here's the thing about Johnny. Johnny, I would not have wanted to been Johnny Ramone's friend. Johnny seemed like a miserable, miserable bastard. He was
really?
Yeah. So he was like a poser military guy. These guys, you're from Texas. You know, these guys that didn't like join the army, but think they did.
Yeah.
No, there's
a lot of those fucking
He's like a version of that dude. So
really?
Yeah. So the funny thing about the Ramones, so part of all this punk rock stuff with the Ramones is it actually comes from this like rigidity. It doesn't come from freedom. It comes from this kind of militant attitude. That's why, but that kind of created that punk militancy in a weird way. Because
that is very strange. I did not know that at all.
There were rules in the Ramones. There were very much rules. Like Dee Dee Ramone wanted to be a rapper in the mid 80s. Dee Dee Ramone did not want to dress in a leather jacket and a bowl haircut for 40 years. There were rules in the Ramones. The Ramones are a very strict kind of, for this band that like played 3 chords and didn't play rock and roll. They were very strict.
That actually makes sense now.
But it also kind of kept them going though too. Like,
well, I mean, that's how they all got the fucking Ramones names and shit. I mean, it's a uniform.
Yeah, it's rules. It's very much thing. Now, the reason for all that is because Johnny, the 2 guys really ran earlier months, Johnny and Tommy, but Johnny is he's the most consistent Ramone. He's the Ramone, him and Joey, obviously. They're the Ramones who never, and they hate each other. Joey who is number one on my list. Joey is the hippie. Joey's a relaxed dude. Joey's chilled back. Joey's a heartthrob. Johnny is intense. Johnny is go forward. Johnny never wants to put any compromise in the. So all that the punk rockers have, they got that from Johnny Ramone. Now, specifically on the guitar, let's talk about it. So this is the most influential thing that he had. There's a few things. I think the thing that's most often cited is the downstrokes, the uncompromising downstrokes, which is influential in punk, although not a lot of artists actually adhere to it as much. Like he's pretty much the only guy on this list alone. Maybe Fletcher a little bit that actually sticks that. Quite frankly, punk rock is too fast to play with only downstrokes. So that influence
now it is for sure
extends more to metal, and all these metal rhythm guitars that where they all picked that up was from the 80s band. So the Ramones become like after the 70s, and as I talked about a couple weeks ago when they tried to sell out and couldn't. Well, the next move, and this was Johnny's call. Johnny Ramone kind of created hardcore in New York. So the Ramones had a reputation. So they would play CBGBs, but punk was dead. Punk was new wave. Even their friends in Blondie, they couldn't play. You couldn't play at the shitty club with Blondie. You know what I mean? You couldn't play with Devo. You couldn't play with Television. They were their peers. So you know what they did? They found peers. They found peers in New York that they influenced. And so that's why that a lot of that 80s Ramone stuff, it's kind of funny. They started to sound like the people they were influencing in a weird kind of like loop.
That is so okay. Yeah.
So think about it. So
loop of Ramones core.
Yeah, it is. So the 80s got so the Ramones core is even separate from this. So I'm talking about more. This is the guy.
No, I meant like Ramones core is just in like.
But that also plays it. That's I'm gonna get there too because you have that too. You have these 80s guys that grew up on 70s punk, and they either make thrash metal or they make hardcore. Both of which are heavily inspired by the Ramones, by Johnny's guitar technique. And he goes from there. So that sort of like births these two.
So wait, hold on. You're telling me that thrash and hardcore are heavily inspired by Johnny Ramone's punk rock guitar playing.
Mm-hmm. That is like the common thread between the two of them, actually. Because they always say like thrash is like metallic punk. Well, what is punk about it very specifically? There's a few things. The drums are but like the way they play guitar, they just kind of, it's like the Ramones with solos. As all those, that's why all those old thrash guys are always wearing Ramones t-shirts, and everyone they're either wearing Ramones or Misfits t-shirts, and they're all playing that same exact style. Like I was gonna put Doyle on this list. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't Doyle of the Misfits. Why am I gonna put Doyle on this list if I have Johnny Ramone? Like I like them, but no, I have Johnny Ramone. Like it's covered. Now there's stuff that the Misfits does rhythmically it's a little bit different, but no, I have Johnny Ramone. The other thing he does, here's why no one sounds like him. So like. Billy Joe's a great power chord player. He's great. And they play good Ramone songs. The reason why Billy Joe doesn't sound like Johnny Ramone because he plays power chords. Johnny Ramone didn't play power chords. No one ever talks about this. He played bar chords. He played them in the shape of power chords, but he played bar chords. So Johnny Ramone hit all 6 strings every time he stroked the instrument. So he's emphasizing the normal box power chord shape, but the rest of his hand is muting the other strings and he's hitting every string. That's part of how he's able to get that very consistent speed, which a lot of metal and punk has done that over the years, but not on this. Like here's what makes
I'm not a very good guitar player. That's why I play that way.
Well, and as
I know that's why I'm laughing.
Same. That's why I think of the guitar in my sets, like the way Johnny did, as a rhythm instrument, and that's where that kind of comes from because he didn't want to learn. He didn't want to learn leads. He didn't want to learn individual notes. He just wanted to play bar chords, and he was in charge. So the Ramones only ever played downstroke bar chords. That's how it is. But like that's just kind of
interesting.
And I think okay. So the other part about it, the drum style, he's influential on the Ramones drum style. So Tommy Ramone did not know how to play drums. So normally I heard that actually. I knew it builds out from the drums and the rhythm, and like these higher pitched instruments are the ones that kind of follow and fill in the colors. Not with the Ramones. The Ramones are writing their songs, guitar wise. Tommy was trying to fit with Johnny's guitar, and that's where you got the Ramones, the original Ramones drum sound, because Tommy really couldn't play. Originally, Joey was the more talented drummer. Joey was a little bit of a trained drummer, but Dee Dee couldn't sing. The Ramones are just all fucked up. It's basically the point of it. So all these necessities, all of these like I said, how Green Day has no handicaps. The Ramones are nothing but literal and figurative handicaps because you have speech impediment, you have all this stuff going on. You got personal issues, you got religious differences. I'm not even kidding about that. The Ramones
I know. I'm just laughing because you're losing your shit right now.
Band of all time. Is why they can make songs about mental illness that sound all happy, and it kind of works. Not to say anything of the rhythm that Johnny had to play. And here's the thing that no one knows about the Ramones. their live show, it was Johnny's mission to make, and this is part of the hardcore turn in the 80s, to make them as fast as possible. The suspicion is that he hated Johnny so much that he hated Joey so much that he didn't want to let Joey actually get his lyrics in. Because if you watch like the last show, the Blitzkrieg Bop sounds cool, but it kind of sucks the way they do it. They are doing it so fast that it is impossible for Joey to fit like like he has to have like almost like Cliff Notes lyrics that he's throwing from straight line. Like that song, there's too many lyrics in the song to do it as fast as they do it. And that was on Johnny of like, okay, and this was Johnny's thing. Johnny knew after the album didn't work out where they tried selling out, Johnny knew we're never going to be stars. Johnny was so freaking practical. Like Johnny's like your dad, who's just like, he's so practical. He says like, okay, so we're not going to be rock stars, but we still make money off of a live show. We'll just have the best live show of all time. We'll have the most, so we're only going to have these songs. So that militarism, kept going and kept going. Everyone who worked with him hated him. It was the fact of until after. So shout out to him. The Ramones end in 1996. From like 97 to 2001, Johnny goes to Hollywood and becomes friends with all these celebrities. And like, so when he dies in 2004, like there's like Nicolas Cage speaks at his funeral and Elvis Presley's daughter's there. And of course, like Lars is there as not just Lars, the punk rocker, but Lars, like the celebrity, and the dudes from Metallica are there. That's like, he died as this revered celebrity who was pretty much a hated person his whole life. It's kind of insane.
It is kind of weird.
That was a lot on Johnny there. Shit. I went on a long rant about Joey last week, and this week Johnny. And I was like, I think I could do a whole episode on each member of the Ramones.
Well,
and their contribution.
So, as time goes by, I mean, I go on long rants too. So it's something. That's what this channel does. This is what this podcast is. It's just a rant, and if people can either like it or not. So, I didn't ever like hate the Ramones. I just never cared about them. Mm-hmm. But as time goes by, I'd say that they're the one like classic punk band that I've grown to like the most.
Mm.
I like maybe like the Ramones and then maybe the Misfits underneath that. When I was younger, dude, I was like a punk amongst punk rockers, dude. Like I just didn't like the same stuff that everybody else liked. I don't know how I ever made it in this scene to begin with, dude. I don't know how I ever managed to, because I'm thinking back, man, even when I was like living at the punk house and hanging out with everybody, and they used to give me shit because all I listened to back then was Rancid and the U.S. Bombs and One Man Army. Like, I've always just liked what I liked, and I've never understood the hype on a lot of these bands. I think with the stuff like the Bad Brain stuff we were talking about earlier, I finally figured out what I was trying to say earlier, is that you had to be there. And if you weren't there, I don't know how it could possibly be this important to you if you weren't there. Mm-hmm. And you can't replicate it. So there will never be a second coming. And I think that was even evident to me when I was 15. Because I was like, I don't really get it. But like if I was there, because like when I listened to that record yesterday on the stream, while I liked it better than I expected to, I could tell, even with the recording, like, oh man, this would have been amazing live. Like that would have been really, really insane to witness. And I think that where punk rock comes from, it's probably happening again now. Like, look at the state of the world, dude. Like, people are really pissed off. And I think that, punk's never going to die. But I definitely think there's versions of it you can't get back, you can't replicate, and somebody of a certain age can't understand it as much, if I'm making any sense.
Oh yeah, for
sure.
So
like we can love the Misfits and the Ramones, but that stuff wasn't born of the I don't know, man. I got this thought in my head. You weren't wrong, dude. This shit's bothering me, man. Like my list is irritating me right now. Like I'm looking at it and it's just pissing me off because I think because some insecurities. That's what it is. Let's be honest about it. That's what it is. It's some insecurities, which I don't usually care about, which is making me weirded out that I care about it.
You're a pretty damn confident person generally on this.
It's very weird, man. I think it's because I love this stuff, man. I love this shit, bro. And I think that a certain group of people will be like, oh, you don't love it as much as so-and-so. And that shouldn't bother me. But I do have such a deep, amount of care for this life, this lifestyle, this music, this subgenre. I mean, everything I do, man. I own a record store and we primarily sell punk rock. I own a record label. We put out punk rock. I do a YouTube channel. It's about punk rock. I go to my other job and I wear punk rock t-shirts and talk about punk rock. My daughter is going with me next weekend to Austin for a record release show. Like, this is my life. And I do take it a little personally. And you shouldn't care what people think to a certain degree, but I think people should also maybe not give somebody shit because they don't care about the same things. And it just, I think it does bother me a little bit. I don't know, man. I think this is the one time you'll see me get a little bit weirded out by it, a little bit insecure, because I think there's a lot of importance in the history of all this. And while I do appreciate the history, I don't know a lot about it because I'd never cared about the music whenever it was time for me to listen to it. Like back then, I listened to it and was like, it sucks. Bad Brains, it sucks. Sex Pistols, they're all right. Ramones, it's okay. Misfits, it's a terrible recording. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how the fuck I ever started listening to Minor Threat. I definitely liked that band when I was younger. But I don't know, man. I guess it's just a crapshoot. You like what you like. And I was more interested in, like, let's see, Suicide Machines, Rancid. I liked ska a lot when I was real young. So, you know, just different journeys, dude. I don't know. It's weird. I never thought I'd be this vulnerable.
You like a lot more traditional stuff, though, in other genres of music, though, too.
Meaning,
I just think, like, generally, like, your palette's a lot bigger than punk, though, too. So a lot of what, like, I think I get out of, someone like me gets out of, like, really diving into, like, Black Flag is what you might get out of just, like, diving into other types of music generally. Like, you know what I mean? I think you're pretty specific on what you like on punk, though, too. I think, even though you listen to a lot of it, there's like I think there's a pretty narrow swath of what you is very specific. It doesn't really conform to any one thing, so it's hard to say what it is. But
I've never been able to articulate that. But that's what it is that I'm particular, but I like a lot of different stuff. But the stuff that I like in that stuff is got to be the stuff I like. It's you know, I like ska, but I don't like the silly stuff. I like country music, but I don't like the poppy stuff. I like hardcore, but I don't like it to have too much metal. I like metal, but it's got to be thrash. Like, I'm picky, dude. I'm not the pickiest person you'll ever meet in your life. My wife gives me so much shit for it. And I don't necessarily think that what I like's better. I just don't understand people telling me that I should also like something else. That drives me fucking nuts, man. Like, why should I like something that I don't like? That doesn't make sense to me. You know, it's I feel like I'm like one of the last real punk rockers because, like, everybody has this conformity that you have to like this stuff. You have to be a part of this. I can tell that you genuinely like Black Flag. Now, I don't necessarily understand why, but I know you do.
Right.
And so I don't have to question that. But I know dozens of people that claim to like Black Flag, but I go back to the record bin thing. If you go to their house, they don't have Black Flag records. And if they do, they are not opened. So how much do you really like Black Flag? Why don't you just say you don't and then be okay with it? And I'm just using Black Flag as an example. It's not really the band I'm talking about, but like any band that is the band you're supposed to like. Dead Kennedys. I don't really like the Dead Kennedys. I like some songs, but that's the one thing about playlists and streaming music that I do appreciate right now is that I can go through and pick out the songs that I like from these bands and actually get some time with the band. And I think that will like in time probably increase the number of songs that I like from any given band. I would think, right? Maybe.
I would assume, because then you start like, okay, like it's not like these one songs are usually one off. Sometimes they are, but usually they have other stuff that's of that flavor. And sometimes you need that thing to kind of to wedge you, into that.
This is the weirdest episode that we've done.
You said it's like punk rock therapy couch for you. It'll like
I've been.
I was going to ask, like, do you feel like you don't get to enjoy then what everyone else is enjoying? Is that part of it? Like, is it?
No, I don't give a shit what everybody else is enjoying.
That kind of makes sense to me. Like, if you'd be like, oh shoot, like it's like, am I missing out on like the fun almost? Like,
no, I think that's the issue, is that I don't care, and I don't understand why people have to give me grief for it. Like, what do you care if I don't like whatever band? Why? Like, let's use what's the band that has that song that's like where it kind of has the ring out and it goes arf arf and then they go back into the heavy it's a hardcore band that everybody likes, but I think they sound like a metal band to me. Oh
like,
my
like
goodness.
Jane's Addiction or
no, it's a hardcore band. What?
I know, I was saying you say arf
dude.
arf, I was thinking of Jane's Addiction.
Dude, you don't know the arf arf song? It's a hardcore band. He's like goes into a breakdown and he goes arf arf and it just goes. You don't know what I'm talking. Oh my god, hold on. I'm gonna type in arf arf song. I guarantee it pulls it up.
Neither do you apparently.
Because I don't care about them. That's my whole point. Let's see.
Counting Worms. Oh, Knock Loose. Knock Loose. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so let's use Knock Loose as an example. Are they objectively good? Yeah, I think they're pretty good at what they do. But like, I don't care about them. And every hardcore kid that comes into my record store, hey man, you like Knock Loose? I'm like, not really. And they're like, what? How could you not like Knock Loose? And that's what I don't understand. Why do you care? Especially if you're like 17, what a 41-year-old thinks. Like, but like back in the day when I was listening to the US Bombs on a daily basis, and my friends were giving me shit about it. I didn't give them shit for not listening to the US. I didn't care. I was like, why does it matter?
I would totally give people crap for their taste of music when I was a kid. Yeah.
Like,
really? I would totally do. Like, I won't.
I never gave a shit what anybody else was listening to the extent of like, ooh, what is that? I like it. If I didn't like it, I didn't care. And if you didn't like I would show you stuff. And if you didn't like it, it whatever. Maybe it's because I grew up around a bunch of people that fucking hated punk rock and they never cared anyway. So like, I got kind of used to people being like, yeah, that band sucks.
I always like looking back at it. I view it as a form of more like elitism I had of like, look at this cool stuff that I know about that you don't. Your music sucks.
Oh yeah, but I felt that way and I didn't need anybody else's like recognition. I was fine being by myself. I think this is where you and I are also a little different. Like I was never that guy. I never got accepted. I never cared to like, you know, I mean, even nowadays, look at this on the YouTube thing. Like people get in my comments and talk all kinds of hot shit because, man, on face it, dude, I'm from Houston, bro. There's a lot of stuff I didn't get to experience because I'm in Houston. Like I didn't have the money to fly out. I didn't live in New York, DC, or LA. So like, there's a lot of stuff I just didn't experience firsthand. And I don't know, it wasn't as important to me if I wasn't there. I really feel like that matters. And you know, if you look at all my bands, look at all the rap music I like, it's all from Houston. Look at all the punk rock I talk about all the time. It's all from Texas. Like, it's what I'm around, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm a fucking weirdo. Maybe I'm in my feelings. Maybe I need to go to bed. I don't fucking know. Like,
I think so. you're pretty.
I'm thoroughly confused today, bro.
You've only had the same rant like 7 times tonight. I don't know.
Yeah, it has been kind of the same rant, huh? It's pretty funny though.
It is funny because you just keep getting, and then you're getting mad that you're getting sad about it, and then you're
because it's like, irritating the shit out of me, dude. Because I don't really understand what's going on in my head. Look, man, I genuinely don't get bothered by people not agreeing with me. I think
don't. You're annoyed by it though, or something to the point that you're just like,
dude, something's going on, bro.
It's like, no, I've seen content creators who say like they don't make videos about certain things just not to deal with it. I don't even think, I understand the critic, but I don't think you even, your whole core that you don't care about this criticism while you are like at the bar here, very sad, telling me about how sad you are about this.
But the criticism that I'm sad about, I think it's internal, bro, because I was just fixing to say, I think I figured out what it is, dude. So I was in a great mood until you started talking, right?
Sorry.
No. Bear with me here. When I say that, all I mean is like you started giving like your examples, like the ones that you cared about. Mm-hmm. And then I kept looking at my list. Dude, I was positive that we were going to overlap like 60%. The only one we overlapped on was the last one on your list. That's it.
Hefe. Yeah, not
that's
even
it.
Fletcher, yeah.
Dude, nothing else on my list is even on your list. So, with the interest of like not wasting another hour, let me get on with it, dude. So, at the very top of my list, I have Hefe. I think he's way up there. I think he's actually probably like a top 3, just because of how influential NoFX is on my life. I think they got a very unfuckwithable sound and a sound that's also not easy to replicate. Also, at the way top of my list, I put Joan Jett because I think that it's very important to include women in these conversations, and she's like the original badass chick, but it was mainstream enough to get radio play and stuff, but was still like a punk rock gal, dude. Like she's a badass, dude. She's fucking cool, man.
Still is badass, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. So like,
I mean, I saw her in 2004 and thought it was amazing, and that was 20 years ago when I saw Joan.
It's so crazy.
The Black Hearts on the freaking Warped Tour. Like, how cool was that to see Joan Jett? And
that's badass.
Her guitar tone too has always been like amazing too. Just that guitar tone,
so
very basic, very dirty, but very effective.
So yeah, like let's just use "I Love Rock and Roll" as a catalyst for this conversation. She is responsible for one of the most stripped down, catchy. I consider that a punk rock song. If you listen to the lyrics and you listen to the song, if you sped it up a little bit, it would sound like the Ramones. If you sped it up a little faster, it would sound like Rancid a little bit. But it's just a punk rock, rebellious rock and roll song. It's the heart of punk rock. She's a badass. I don't have much else to say about it, dude. Joan Jett's
bad reputation. I would see your rock and roll and raise you bad reputation. That's just punk rock, just everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, dude. Like you're not wrong. Like I just, she's just a legendary, timeless figure, and I think she's somebody that is emulated to death. And
admittedly, like Amy and Brody and all of them have said, like there was no one else to look. That's who the example was. Like the punk rockers weren't going to look up to Lita Ford of the two of
right.
Lita, of all the Runaways. It's Joan Jett is the one.
Right.
She's the one you were going to look up to. Yeah.
And for that reason, I think that, and the fact that she was a gal playing the guitar, she's hanging with the dudes and doing dude shit and being like, "Nah, man, you're not going to push me out because I'm a woman." Like, I just think that that's something that we should respect. All right. I'm going to say two that are going to make people roll their eyes.
All right.
But Matt Skiba and Jack Dalrymple. I didn't want to put them like super high on my list because they're not my favorite guitar players. Like as in like they're just these amazing guitar players, but they do represent a very important part of guitar. They write very good songs that I love, 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 love. Both of those men. Jack Dalrymple has been in Dead to Me and Swingin' Utters more than once. That should tell you a lot. That dude was in Swingin' Utters, but he wasn't a founding member. Then he goes and then he comes back because they're like, "Please come back." And now he's doing like vocal stuff with them too. Like, I think this is more of like a influence, like how much did this person impact my life type of slot on the list. And Matt Skiba and Jack Dalrymple have done that stuff in ways that most musicians have not. So
I wanted to put Skiba, but couldn't quite like have a reason why. Like you know what I mean? Like I know that the guitar is such a huge part of that sound, and when we did the Alkaline show, we talked about the guitar. I just really couldn't like conceptualize what it was that I just didn't know how to talk about it.
Okay, I actually do. This is one thing that I'm very confident in. Okay. Matt Skiba produced a sound that is called the Matt Skiba sound. Not many guitarists, especially not many punk rock guitarists, have been able to do that. Dude, tonight has got me so just stressed out that I've fucked up my fingernails, dude.
Jeez,
dude, I don't know what's going on with me tonight, dude. You know what? I did a podcast before this about a movie that was really dark and it touches on some like really internal shit. And I think that set me on this path of like being uncomfortable tonight. It's really strange how that'll happen, but it's all right, dude. Dude, this makes the channel interesting because I'm not going to edit this shit out. I'm just going to let it be what it is, and people can either like it or not. And I think that people are much more compassionate when you're vulnerable and open to criticism. And I'm okay with it. And I'm okay if they're not. They want to tell me a fucking idiot, they can call me an idiot. I don't give a shit. That's where I do shine. I really don't fucking care. But Skiba has created a sound that's a signature sound, and that's hard to do, man, especially when your band is a 90s and later band. Dude, if you started that shit in like the 60s, you're like, well, yeah, everybody was starting their own sound in the 60s. No, dude, this guy was in the 90s when everybody had already done everything. And I wasn't gonna put him on the list either until I listened to the new album like 3 more times. Fuck, dude, he has gotten so much better. And he still sounds like Matt Skiba. That's important, man. You can improve that much and still sound like the guy that gave us that signature sound. That's important, and he's an important musician in my life and yours as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that this list is subjective. This is my list, not anybody else's. So, I have the top three. My top three. Before I get to my top three, I have one more to mention. He is a local man, and I hope he watches this. I'm going to send him a link to it. Hope he'll get this far in. I'll tell him it's around the 90-minute mark. But Halston Diego Luna, man, that is my guy. He was my old guitar player. And when he was 17 years old, he was doing shit that I would put up against any one of these guitar players, period. And now, as like a full-on man with a family and shit, I would put him against any one of these guitarists. Any of them. He plays Latin music. He plays punk rock. He plays hardcore. He's played some metal. He played rock and roll stuff. But my point is that he can play everything from like, was it, how do you say the word? Is it flamenco? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
He can do that, and he can shred. He can play simple power chord stuff.
Player,
He is a dude. When he was 17, I said, this is the best guitar player I've ever seen. He didn't digress, okay? He is, dude, Halston is my fucking dog, man. I was so happy. I just happened to run into him on Sunday night, bro. The fact that I saw him, he was already on my list. So that's why I told him, dude, you're just so weird I'm seeing you right now because I'm going to bring you up. If you watch that video I sent with the black and white on the far right of the screen, that's Halston, bro. He can play that kind of stuff, and he can play anything that Periphery can play. I don't know if he's going to play what they play. I don't know if he cares to, but he's talented, man. That guy he inspired me at a young age to try to be better at writing music. He was one of two people that I was sad weren't in my life anymore because I fucked our band up because of drugs. I looked up to him, and he was 10 years my junior. Like, that's how good of a guitar player he was and how much that shit impacted me, man. Like, I hear people like right now play guitar in punk bands and go, fuck, dude, they don't even hold a light to that kid. Like, so one of these days I'll send you like all the music I have that he played with me when he was like 17 years old, bro. Maybe, I don't know if he's that young. He wasn't old enough to drink. And you're gonna be like, holy shit, because he wrote all the leads. He did, dude. He's so good at guitar, bro. So shout out to Halston. That's my guy, man. I don't mean to gush over it, but I mean, out of everybody I've ever met in my life, he's easily the best guitar player. And yeah, I have a lot of respect for that guy. I'm glad he's doing what he's doing. Okay, the top three is very simple. It comes in like eras. We'll start with like modern and we'll work our way backwards because that's how I have it ranked. Tim Armstrong is my number 3 because you can't write Operation Ivy, Rancid, Transplants, get a Grammy with Pink, get a Grammy with Jimmy Cliff, and not be in the top 3. I'm sorry. You got 2 fucking Grammys, dude. That trumps everything that the Dead Kennedys and the Bad Brains and Black Flag and the Misfits and Nirvana and whatever other fucking band you would put, a Green Day. Does Green Day have Grammys? Probably.
Green Day have lots of Grammys, yeah.
Okay. Do you think Green Day is a punk rock band? Or like that they're like, I mean, is that the same to you? That's they're on the same plane as Tim Armstrong.
I don't know what you're asking me, but I like Billy Joe as a guitarist more than I like Tim Armstrong because
that wasn't what I was asking. But okay.
But
I mean, that wasn't what I was asking.
I don't know what your point is, but
I'm talking about like punk rockers that do punk rock shit. I'm just saying, like, I don't think Green Day are like punk rockers. I think Tim Armstrong is a punk rocker.
Okay.
This is a punk rock guitar list. Right. That was my point.
Cool.
Well, I mean, it's subjective, so I'm not gonna say somebody's wrong. You're not wrong. I'm just saying, like, when I think of like punk rock guitar players, I don't think of Billy Joe. Is kind of what I was trying to say. I wasn't articulating it very well, but yeah, dude, like. Fuck, dude, it just blows me away that he got Grammys, really. It just shocks me, dude. I'm still surprised to this day. Hey, serious question. Not to like start shit. Has Billy Joe done that?
But
like gone out and written songs for other people?
I don't think
and
so.
Gotten like awards and shit?
I don't know.
I'm genuinely asking, not because I'm trying to be like, oh, cause see, I just never heard me. Maybe
I don't really know if he's really like a songwriter. Like, I mean, he's a songwriter for his band, but
yeah.
I don't. I honestly
I kind of want to know that now.
I think he'd be very successful at that if he did it.
Well, no, that's why I was asking. Yeah. I was fixing to say maybe I'm just tripping here, and he has like 7 Grammys I don't know about because he wrote songs for fucking Justin Timberlake.
I don't know of that, so I'm gonna say no, but I don't know.
I'm just so surprised that Tim Armstrong, being the introvert that he is, has done those things. Is my point. I don't know. I'm just he's my favorite. Fuck it. It is what it is, dude. Like it or don't. I don't care. But an era behind him would be probably my actual favorite guitar player of all time is Brian Setzer.
Really? Wait, what?
Do what?
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like if you were just asking me, who's your favorite guitar player? Brian Setzer. Like there is
no Brian Setzer Orchestra. Brian Setzer.
No. Well, I mean, same guy, not that music. I don't care about that band. But yeah, that same guy. I like his solo material and I like the Stray Cats. But if you go listen to the way that guy plays guitar, that motherfucker talks with that shit, dude. Like, this is the kind of guitar player that I would put on the list because of his talent. Like, I go, holy shit, dude. Not many guys can do that with a guitar. Like, that dude is like, I've never listened to music and cared so much about the guitar outside of Brian Setzer. Like, he is like the guy that I go, that's insane. But like I told you, I had two on my list that I didn't know if you could even consider them punk rock guitarists. He's one.
Okay.
The second one is the one that I put at my number one slot because we never really specified we were talking about punk rock. We just said top guitarists, right? And that's so. I mean, technically, it's a punk rock podcast, so we should have went with that. But I never said anything when you said Green Day because I didn't think that necessarily mattered.
That's a nuance. That definitely Green Day's in our. We talk about that in our show though. Like so, it's in the parameters.
No, but the last two albums they put out with, we've both established that those are not punk rock records. So my point still stands. Don't get all defensive because you fucking like Green Day.
I'm just saying, you put Brian Setzer on the fucking list. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, that's my whole point.
All right.
My entire point is that I wouldn't have thought Green Day would have qualified, but I put Brian Setzer on the list. That's my entire point. You're making my point for me.
Right,
chill, dude. Boy, you are sensitive.
I'm the sensitive one tonight.
Oh no, that's me tonight. No, that's this guy. But the guitar player that I find the most important to me, based solely on the music that I like. This is like, who do I listen to the most? Rancid. Whose guitar playing has influenced Lars Frederiksen more than Chuck Berry? Every fucking lead Lars Frederiksen plays is just a Chuck Berry lead. So my favorite guitar player is Brian Setzer, but the one that I think is the most important to the music that I love the most is Chuck Berry. So those are my 1, 2, and 3 would be Tim Armstrong at 3, Brian Setzer at 2, and Chuck Berry at 1. Because of the stuff that they created is influenced the things that I love. Tim Armstrong being basically the line. It just goes from Chuck Berry to Brian Setzer, Tim Armstrong. But Brian Setzer, I don't know. I would say that Stray Cats were as punk rock as anything else I listened to. Those guys were fucking madmen, and they just played it with a country twang and stand-up bass instead of a fucking over the shoulder bass. I don't know what do you call that? Just a regular standard bass?
Electric bass.
Yeah, electric bass. But I was really, really, really into like rockabilly and psychobilly for a very long time. I don't mean like a year. We're talking like 7. So like a very large portion of my punk rock life. Dude, there's a very natural progression from like Rancid, US Bombs, right into the Stray Cats type stuff. You know what I'm saying? Swinging Utters even falls into that lane a little bit. But yeah, when I was thinking about this and as you were talking, I was like, oh man, this is where we really just kind of have different tastes and stuff. Because you were talking about bands like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols as far as guitarists were concerned. And I was definitely thinking a different direction. As soon as you said guitarist, the first 3 names that popped into my head were Chuck Berry, Brian Setzer, and Tim Armstrong. I was struggling with whether or not I should put Lars on the list because I think that he probably qualifies to a certain degree. But Tim writes most of the stuff that I love.
I think Lars is like a better guitar player generally, but I think Tim's probably the better songwriter of and I think like I'm not saying that definitively. I feel like you're bringing in Lars to play guitar in your band a little more than you're bringing in Tim to play guitar. Like if that was the parameter.
Oh yeah, I would definitely. I mean?
Tim and not just from a personality standpoint,
he just writes the songs and then stands on stage with it slung around his fucking. shoulder spins in circles a bunch.
But I feel like just for whatever reason, like you need a guitarist and you need to pick one up, and you're just hanging out at the Warped Tour in 2004 or whatever. You're probably just picking Lars before you picked him in that scenario.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really mean anything. But I mean, like it does maybe. But I didn't really know where to put like Lars and Tim on the list. I kind of struggled with their sort of placement as well.
Tim's ability to write songs of so many styles was an easy pick for me because he writes everything from ska and reggae stuff to like street punk stuff to pop music. The guy is literally what is defined as a great guitarist. He just also happens to be like a songwriter as well as just a guitarist. So,
like you said, Brian Setzer, they're definitely influenced by like the same stuff that like Brian Setzer is. Like that's you talk about like even the way he presents himself with the guitar and swooping it across and all that. That's very that.
You
style.
seemed perturbed when I said Brian Setzer.
I am. Yeah, I am.
Why?
I don't know, because like I just feel like that's not in the spirit of this list.
What?
Yeah.
How?
Like, what the hell is that? Well, I mean, it wasn't as bad as Chuck Berry, but I just don't like Brian Setzer.
Wait. Brian Setzer is as or more qualified for this list as anybody that you talked about.
Okay. Sure. He's as qualified as Johnny Ramone. Like, get the fuck out of here. Come on.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So this is a guitar. This is a guitar. Hold on.
We're doing punk. No. We're doing punk. Like, come on. We're doing punk. So
you're telling me that Brian Setzer does was his stuff not at the Punk Rock Museum?
I don't know. I don't remember it.
It absolutely. I can tell you it was.
But I'm just saying. It's just like I just wouldn't have thought like really like Brian Setzer. That's where we're.
Well, we're talking about guitar players, not necessarily like this is another example of like how we make our list. I almost said disliferent. List different. I don't care about influence. The way that
I don't either, but it's fucking Brian Setzer. It's not about influence. It's Brian Setzer.
He is a fucking million times better guitarist than anybody that you talked about.
Okay. It's a subjective list. I'm just like, okay.
No, but like that's objective though. That's something you can actually go back and listen to the music and prove that that's accurate. My question to you would be like, why did Chuck Berry? I get it. That was a very.
I don't consider Brian Setzer a punk rock guitarist. Straight up, I just don't. And I don't think his stuff's that good. And I just like, that doesn't.
Okay, hold on. You don't think his stuff's that good
because I'm not that familiar with it. One. Okay.
Because, I can understand that. I can handle.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm reacting like when I put, and I'm not saying this like as a back, but like when you said like really you put like Goldfinger as a ska punk band, I'm like really you put Brian Setzer and Chuck Berry on this list.
No, like Chuck Berry was the one that I was like ready for some shit. I didn't think you would give me shit about Brian Setzer. I was really surprised.
That one I find more actually objectionable for some odd reason. Like I don't know why.
Well, Chuck Berry, dude, if he was alive in like the 80s and 90s, he would have absolutely been a punk rock, or not alive, but if he was like coming up and making music, if he was 20 years old in that era, I think he would have definitely been. Yeah, he was a very punk rock individual.
Yeah, he was a sex offender in the 80s, I think.
Bro, yeah, shit, dude. Well, I mean, bucket system, I guess. I don't fucking know, but like, so okay, so do you not consider stuff like? Oh, buddy.
I mean, you didn't consider Tiger Army a punk band when we did the Hellcat episode.
So that's exactly what I was fixing to ask you. That's the words came right out of my mouth. So yeah, you're going to talk about Tiger Army or something like the Necromantics or Mad Sin or something like that, which is absolutely punk rock adjacent.
Like I mean,
do what?
Like at least it's like with punk, I guess. Like I feel like that's more punk adjacent than like this. It's like
I mean, look,
like I just don't look. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is going to piss people off. I'm not saying it to piss people off. I'm saying it because I believe it, and it just so happens it's going to piss people off. I find more about Brian Setzer just as a person and a musician and his life's work, punk, than I do the Clash. Let me rephrase that. The music specifically. I'm talking about the music. Like I don't, when I hear the Clash, what I mean is when I hear the Clash, I don't hear like punk at all. I've never, the Buzzcocks is another one. I've never understood how those bands get brought up as punk rock bands. Now, were they punk like as people, as in their like, their ethics and their the way they live their life? well, yeah, maybe not the Buzzcocks. I don't know much about them personally.
Really,
but the Clash, absolutely. My point is that if you go back in our music that we listen to, you'll find these guys just as influential as these guys. And I don't mean to shit on the Clash. That's not the point. The point is I'm trying to give credit to Brian Setzer, not take away credit from the Clash. I'm just saying, like, what I think of those two things.
But I thought you said you don't consider influence. That doesn't make any sense to me, that to have Brian Setzer on there.
Well, he's my favorite guitar player, not because of influence. He's just my favorite guitar player. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, but you were saying that as a justification. But I was like, but isn't that like not?
I wasn't saying it as a justification. I was just saying it as something that I was just saying it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need justification. I know what I know, and I don't care if we disagree. We're friends. I don't care if we agree on everything. I was just so shocked by your facial expression change because I totally expected it with Chuck Berry, but with Brian Setzer, I thought you were going to be like, "Fuck, that's a great pick" because of the stuff the guys created and the amount that like rockabilly and psychobilly are so closely related to punk rock and even hardcore. Like even all the guys in like the New York hardcore scene, a lot of those dudes were like greaser guys that also listened to like rockabilly and some psychobilly shit. So like, you know, and then all that like tough guy shit comes from like that community of gangs from that era and greasers. It's just like it's such a spider web because it all is not the same and it all is the same at the exact same time. The Ramones are a punk band, but so is Bad Brains, but they sound nothing alike. The Bad Brains are a punk band, but so is I don't know, dude. Some people call Blink-182 a punk band.
Well, at least Bad Brains got their name from a Ramones song, so we can at least say that connection.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is that all this stuff it's a spider web. It's again.
I just don't put Brian Setzer in any lineage of punk. That's my thing. Like I understand what you're saying.
Fucking bananas, dude.
I just don't see that
crazy.
Like
that's crazy.
The history you write of punk will be the one that has that in there, and I think that'll be that. Like that's about it.
No, but you said you don't look. What?
I just don't consider like that's. I just again. You talk about how
so rockabilly has nothing to do with punk.
I didn't say that.
But Brian Setzer is like the rockabilly guitarist.
Sure, but and even what is the influence of rockabilly within punk outside of Hellcat Records?
Okay. If you even want to just take Hellcat Records, I don't understand that because I look at them more like reggae than rockabilly. But if you want to just say rockabilly influenced Hellcat Records, my whole life is Hellcat Records. So I would take that as a personal jab because that means that what does it have to do with your whole fucking life then? Well, my whole fucking life is that shit. Everything that I create is very much a tip of the cap to Tim Armstrong and the shit he creates. Now, whether or not that's cool or whatever, I don't know or give a shit. I just create what I create. But like, I mean, that's a wild ass statement for somebody that I know.
Are we going to put the Beach Boys in like the Punk Rock Hall of Fame? Like that's what you're basically, I think, doing, right? Because the Ramones sound a lot like the Beach Boys. Like, is that kind of what we're doing there? Like, I mean,
so if you want to go based on influence alone, I guess you could put their name somewhere in the fucking, borders of fucking. I wasn't. The Beach Boys didn't play shows with punk bands. The Stray Cats did. Like the Beach Boys influenced the Stray Cats too. I mean, I guess we can put the fucking Beach Boys in there. You know what I'm saying? Like if we want to go that direction, I guess I can't really argue. I guess the Beatles are there too because they influenced Green Day. I mean, but like no, the Stray Cats. I mean, I guess this is showing my age a little bit, but like how old are you? You're 36.
36, yeah.
36. So we're only 5 years apart, 5.5 years apart. Like, are you going to be 36 or be 37?
I'll be 37 this year.
Okay, so you're basically 37. So we're about 5 years apart because I'll be 42 here pretty soon. So I guess that's a pretty important 5 years because if you look at it like you're 87?
87 I'm born in, yeah.
Okay, so I'm 82. And so that would put me at like 95 and put you at like 2000 when we were hitting our formative years. Like that might be a big difference actually, dude. Like 95 and 2000, there's a lot of different shit going on because when I was out shopping for music back when I was a teenager, I was still primarily buying records. I wasn't buying CDs until I was like 17, 18, 19 years old. So like, the music that was available. Yeah, you're fine. The music that was available was older and also being from Texas, like my dad was a country western music fan. So whenever I was a kid, it was very easy for me to be like, ooh, the most punk rock country shit I can find would be the Stray Cats. Hey, Dad, can I listen to this in the house? Yeah, sure, that's fine. Oh, I know that guy. Yeah. Doesn't he do a lot of drugs? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about that. Let's listen to the music. And so, like, it depends on where your vantage point is. Where are you looking from? Where is your perspective coming from? Because Brian Setzer is a very, very punk rock individual, and his music is extremely punk rock. I am flabbergasted that you're arguing against that. I mean, yeah, that's wild. I mean, I really wish that he had never done that orchestra shit, but hey.
So maybe you talk about Kind of Age. My first experience with him is that, so maybe it's just all.
No, when you said that, I was like, man, because what's funny is whenever I say Brian Setzer, I am never thinking.
Like that's the first thing I said. Like, oh fuck that! Like that's
yeah.
Like when I think of bad '90s music, like that's the band I think of immediately.
No, it's not. Cherry Pop and Daddies is, but
yeah, okay, kind of interchangeable with that.
No, not even close, dude. They're no, not even in the same. I mean, they're the same ballpark, but like, fuck, dude. No, we're talking like, clubhouse seats versus like fucking nosebleeds, man. Like, that band's rough. But even their band name is terrible. But I wish he hadn't done that. But I mean, he's older than we are, so he liked a lot of the big band swing shit. So like, that's like his lighter side. Whereas like my lighter side would be like some reggae shit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. His was like big band swing stuff. I mean, man, that Spiderweb, dude, it touches everything, man. You can get from swing music to fucking Exploited pretty quick, and then all the way back over to the Beatles pretty fast. It's weird, man. The degrees of separation are not very wide, is my point.
Yeah, art is kind of like that because it takes from so many different things.
Bro, I am fucking shocked by your response to that, dude. Like that blows my mind. I feel like I need to sit you down and make you listen to some music, sir.
I'm in trouble and I have to listen to Brandon's. I'm just
yeah.
My punishment, my penance.
No, your punishment is to go listen to fucking Dead Kennedys and fucking Black Flag.
Torture me. This is our best and worst episode. It's both.
Oh, for sure. Okay, serious question. Have you ever listened to like a Stray Cats album or anything?
Yeah,
I can't imagine you like that stuff.
I don't know if I've ever put a full album on, but I mean,
yeah.
But it's like I don't even find it objectionable. I just don't really.
Yeah,
I don't really find it. Yeah.
I wouldn't assume that that was like something you were like, I'm gonna go listen to Stray Cats today. Whereas I have absolutely done that. Like,
yeah, for the rockabilly stuff and like the side, I always say like that's what I got like Hellcat Records for is like to kind of hear that kind of stuff.
Dude, so what's with the Hellcat Records thing?
I think like Necromantics. I think Tiger. Like if I want that flavor of music, that's where I will go to for that.
Those are like the exception, sure. Not the rule for Hellcat to me.
I think a lot of that psychobilly rock.
I guess they did have a little bit of that stuff
going on, cool, but I also kind of think it's kind of silly. Like I like it kind of filtered through punk rock more so than in its original form.
I have no right to call anything silly. I listen to punk rock. They have fucking spiky blue mohawks. Like that's stupid. So
correct. Yeah.
I can't
the way it should be.
Like
true. Man, like I don't like denigrate. Like I don't hate that people are in it, but it's like it's just not like I say that, and like I would love to dress like a psychobilly guy, just like at my job and stuff. Like I think they.
Dude, I was just showing my wife a video of a guy getting like a fucking big ass fucking what do they call the pomps that are that big? They call them something, but he got a big ass psychobilly pompadour, and I was like, "This shit is so badass." And the guy was like 65 with head tattoos, and I was like, "That guy rules."
Like I'd much rather like go to a car show with these people than listen to them play music.
Well, you'll hear the music at the car show, sir. So my apologies.
I actually, to be fair, I was at a car show like a year ago, and I was pretty happy to see the rockabilly band. And I was telling my kids about like the punk. Yeah, I was. So yes,
you motherfucker.
But it's our top guitarist. You of all people had to get to clear Tim Armstrong out of the way to make space for Brian Seltzer. Okay.
Well, he's dude. Sincerely, like in all honesty, he is my number one favorite guitar player of all time.
What about Chuck Berry, man? We gotta.
No, Chuck Berry's just the one that I think is probably the most important because you go from him to all the stuff I really love. But
like if I was to go, I don't even know. And to be fair to you, at least you picked the influence. Like if we were to do straight guitar players, I don't even know how punk it would be. Like I don't know punk. I don't know. Guitar is like the strongest genre for punk. Like there's a lot of great guitar. Like I think a great guitar player.
Dude, as we started talking about it, I was like, man, we should have gone with bass players. Like there's some really great bass players that are in punk that stand out. Like they stand out.
Well, that's a much easier list to construct, I think. Or it could be different, but it would be.
It's lazier though. It's lazier.
Yeah,
like,
because
this list was hard.
Like, we can't not have like Matt Freeman and Fat Mike. Like it would have a lot of redundant. What's good about this list is kind of the separation. We covered like 20 different guitarists tonight.
Yeah, and not only that, but we covered different parts of punk, because whether or not we agree that Brian Setzer has anything to do with it, the history books will say that he does, because there's an offshoot of punk rock that is rockabilly, and he's probably the most prominent guitarist in that whole genre of music. If you ask anybody that plays anything remotely close to that, I imagine that they would be like, "Oh, that's like God tier." I mean, he was the first dude that had like the tattoos and cigarettes that was like the Gretsch guy. Like, Tim Armstrong probably wouldn't even play the same guitar.
I think of more of Mike Ness for everything you're saying. I think of Mike Ness.
You know what's funny is his name's right here and it's crossed out and it says Brian Setzer underneath it. Mike Ness is.
I would have guessed that'd been like someone like a number one for you would have been like Mike Ness. Like that's like you pick. And I like he was on barely kind of outside looking in for me, but I think of him more as the total package than just a guitar player. Was kind of my take on that.
If you go with like dudes I'd want to hang out with, I'd probably pick Mike Ness. But if I have two records and I could play one, and one of them is the best song Social Distortion has, and the other is no, let's change that. The best songs Mike Ness has, and the other one is the best songs that Brian Setzer has. I'm going to go with Brian Setzer. If we're talking about guitars, because he's a better guitar player in every single aspect of the word. Now they're very similar, and they even have similar like records released at the same time. Like Mike Ness, dude, Brian Setzer put out his solo stuff, 69 comeback special. I think it might be 59 comeback special, and then coincidentally, like less than a year, Mike Ness drops. God damn, what was it called? He did it's got like the cover of him with his hair slicked back, and it's got all the songs on the front of the album. Anyways, there was a time where that stuff was what everybody wanted to hear. All the punk rockers were suddenly turning into greasers and shit. Yeah, dude, this community is stupid. I quit. I don't give a shit. This
podcast was stupid and informative, but also very stupid.
It was really fun though. Like this is probably one of the most honest and most like truthful podcasts we've ever done.
Yeah,
because like this is super subjective. It was very important. Each one of our lists were extremely different, which is never the case.
No,
we always have a ton of overlap.
We spent 2 hours debating like the three things we have different most of our shows.
Right. And so while I think that's charming and people like that about our show, I think that to have one of these every now and then, I think is important, because it's good to have some diversity. It's good to have a little bit of I don't know, debate, dude. I mean,
brings our personality out too, of like what we like and our tastes and that kind of
stuff. Yeah. And it gets to people that watch the show to know us a little bit more. And that's kind of the goal for me on all these episodes, is for people to get to know me. I really do think that the podcast before put me in a weird headspace. So it put me in just a weird, I thought I was ready to talk music, and I think I'm still kind of stuck in this weird. The movie we watched is called Dogs Don't Wear Pants, and it's have you heard of this movie before?
No.
Oh my God. I'll give you the very quick. Oh dude, the synopsis goes as such. And it's like a European film. It's not even in English. It's in like Danish or some shit, but it's this guy and his daughter hanging out at their lake house with the wife and mom, and she drowns, and the guy's a surgeon. And so he tries to save her and he doesn't. And then he almost dies trying to save her. And he takes his daughter to get her tongue pierced for her birthday. And when he's waiting on her, she's like, "Dad, get out of the room." So he's walking through this hallway and he stumbles across this like sculpture, what he thinks is a sculpture of a person in like a Iron Maiden suit with the spikes on it. And he goes to touch it, and this woman just appears out of nowhere and smacks him with a whip. And then he like falls on the floor and she beats the shit out of him. And it turns out, oh, he likes that.
Oh.
And that's where the title comes from, because she calls him dog, and she's like, "Take off your pants. Dogs don't wear pants." And she makes him. He finds that's where he gets his comfort. He lost his wife, and the only way he can go back to the feeling is she suffocates him to the point of almost dying.
Wait, and directed by Fat Mike Burkett over here. This sounds like straight out of his.
Yo, I didn't even think about that, bro.
Literally with the suffocation, all that.
Bro, I bet you $1 million that he's watched that movie. Wow, that's how we get it to be on the Punk Rock Review. Sure.
Yeah, there we go. We landed that plane, that S&M airline, very well.
Oh, dude, that's so great. I love you right now. See, you've redeemed yourself from the Brian Setzer fucking bitter beer face you had. Fucking
you not so much. You still have to work that one out.
Hey, no, I don't. Just go Google that motherfucker, bro. You'll be all right. I got faith in you. You can read. You can read. You'll be okay. Yeah, I do think we should sit down one day and like bring our what would you call it? Personal differences to the table and go, hey, look, I want you to hear this. Well, because there's music you like that I don't care about,
like
but I would love
stuff. Yeah.
but I would love to hear it and then have you point out why you like it, because then I might end up going, oh shit, oh, that makes sense to me. And I'm not saying it so that we can argue. I really think that might be beneficial to just
like an appreciation lesson, almost like this is what it's like. I think about like once I took an art appreciation class and it wasn't about loving the art. It's like being able to say why people love this. Like
correct. And
that's exactly what
I'm trying to learn how to appreciate stuff like Bad Brains. That's why I did the listen through yesterday. And I think that that's important. And I think it's really important to be able to stand up in front of a group of people and go, hey, look, I don't know everything about this. I don't have any authority. I'm not an authority. I just create content based on something that I love. And I love it the way that I love it. And if you want to judge me for that, go ahead. I'm going to continue doing this. You can either come along or not. It's up to you. But it takes courage to do this stuff for both of us, because we both get judged, whether you know it or not. I'm sure you do. We get judged all the time. Mm-hmm. I get judged way more than you, I'd be honest. People fucking think I'm an idiot, but it is what it is. I don't care. Like, hey, dude.
You changed everyone's opinion tonight.
No, I did not. I am certain they'll be like, fucking Chuck Berry. And then, like, anybody that's my age or older will be like, hell yeah, dude. Johnny B. Good rules. Fucking.
You're really big with this 55 to 90 demographic tonight. You're really
no. Hey, in all sincerity, if you look at my viewership, it's like 40 to fucking 70.
Oh, so they're telling the stories about seeing their first Chuck Berry show. That's awesome.
Oh man,
they saw Chuck Berry at CBGB's. It was amazing.
This fucking guy laughs at me about that shit. Meanwhile, he goes to a school that teaches where all the kids laugh at him for liking the Ramones. So they're like.
Mm-hmm. And I tell them this is the music mommies and daddies listen to.
Oh man. All right, dude. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat, dude. Next week we're talking about our favorite Epitaph releases. Strictly Epitaph, no Hellcat stuff. It'll be Epitaph. I don't know who the fuck's still watching this, but
yeah, thank you. I'm sorry.
This is being used as torture a la fucking Clockwork Orange. They're like, fucking, oh my god, he's talking about Brian Setzer still. Oh geez, shut him up.
He's defending his selection still.
Oh man,
he's sad because he didn't know something.
Bro, I was really bothered earlier. I don't even know what was bothering me. I'm telling you, it was that movie, man. I don't think it had nothing to do with our podcast. I think I was just fucked up from earlier. But bro, I'm still flabbergasted by your distaste for Brian Setzer, man.
That hit you more than my distaste of your selection. That was,
dude, that's gonna haunt me for like 3 days, man. Like
you're gonna text me like, hey, are we cool?
Dude, I don't know, dude. Fuck that. If you're not cool with me over that, then fucking go back and teach your class and leave me alone. But I find that hard to believe. So
I don't know. I'll have to make a decision.
You motherfucker. But yeah. All right, next week we'll be talking about likely NoFX and Pennywise.
Who knows?
Oh man. Well, you bring the Brad Religion to the fucking cookout because I'm not gonna.
All
so
right. In spades. Sure, I got a lot of that meat.
Awesome, man. All right, dude. Have a good week, brother, man. If you need something, hit me up. Everybody else, y'all have a great night. Love y'all. Peace.